and you are watching another Blewett Blitz film review. He has that ability to, trust me, he definitely does. Just his ability to catch balls outside of his frame, his leaping ability, his ability to hang in the air, his yak ability, it's all there. Lowers his helmet, low man wins, bang, rocks a guy.
Hall running free, Brees Hall inside the 10, he's gonna score!
The corners all do their job. You know, if you look at the picture right here, lock.
3rd and 1. It's always drilled. What a great defensive play.
I don't try to Monday morning quarterback any of the reviews I do, and I'll try to be honest with a lot of those things I put up. And you are watching / listening to another edition of Blewett Blitz. Kyle, we took a bye week. We are back. A lot of good things happened since the last time we spoke about 2 weeks ago. But first, what's going on, man?
Yeah, bye week just like the Jets, and sweet bye week for a change. It's nice to go into a bye week off a big W. And hopefully, the Jets are one of the worst teams historically coming off the bye. It would be a travesty to drop a game to the Giants. But I'm doing pretty good, Hey, listen. There's a lot of Eagles fans in this area, as you know, and worst fans in the league, maybe, possibly, very seriously at the top of the list.
They are, it's up
there.
To
be 0-12 against them, to hear them constantly running their mouths, it was nice to, say, oh yeah, you guys lost to the Jets, right? So
yeah. Nice. And especially going to the stadium and seeing all their fans and tailgating with some of their fans actually came to the tailgate. Not my friends, but other people's friends, and hearing them talk the entire time, being able to see the Eagles fans and do the Eagles chants and fly, Eagles fly and all that shit to the Eagles fans walking out. It was very, very, very nice. I'm surprised there weren't more fights, honestly. But nonetheless, very, very nice to go to the stadium, which, by the way, Kyle, you didn't go to week 1. You haven't been to any of the games so far. So, and especially after Zach Wilson or Aaron Rodgers goes down, you're like, okay, I don't know. At that point, are you going to any games this year? But now 3-3, Giants coming up, a potential dub there. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Chargers, Monday Night Football, 4-3 Jets.
Well, 2-3 weeks ago, whenever it was, I think it was 3 weeks ago now on that stream, I said that if the Jets offense, this was after the Wilson Chiefs game, which was the best game of his career. I have no problem saying that. I'm pretty sure you agree with that. And just thinking like, okay, we always knew he had the talent. If he can keep this up and the offense, if they win each of the next 2 games, which they did, but the offense looks great in each of them, I said I would go to this Giants game. Well, the offense didn't look great in both of those 2 games. So I'm not going to be going to this one as much as I kind of do want to go to a Giants game, but like, oh man,
you want the real atmosphere. You want the real atmosphere,
huh?
You want the real atmosphere if you're going to a game for one game this season. Like Giants, Jets would be nice, especially if you win it. Losing would really suck walking out. But the Chargers don't have any fans in LA, so if you go to a Jets game, hopeful 4-3 team on Monday Night Football, it's going to be at least 90% Jets fans, and it's been pretty loud. Credit to the Jets fans who have been there, and obviously some sold their tickets. And there's a sea of red during the Chiefs game, and there's a lot of green from the Eagles fans in the stadium. But when Jets fans are given something to be loud about, they've been pretty loud this season. So Chargers Monday Night Football, 4-3 Jets with the Raiders ahead of them, 6-3, maybe staring them down. It's a pretty exciting game to go to.
Maybe I'll think about it. I mean, listen, we're hearing more and more chatter about, Connor Hughes was amongst some of the people who said this, that, Rodgers could even come back potentially for the final week of the season. Kind of seems unrealistic, especially, just given the nature of that injury to begin with. And then just hearing his comments on McAfee's show recently, where he feels like he had a tough week of rehab and, was maybe not as progressing as much as he was previously. If they make the playoffs and he's actually starting, I'd have to really seriously give consideration to going to a game. But I don't know. We'll see how the rest of the season goes. I mean, like, listen, if they start just going on a huge winning streak, or, just having some really impressive wins against some really good opponents or something, but I wanted to go to several Aaron Rodgers games this year, not Zach Wilson games. So when week 1 happened, that kind of really put a sour taste in my mouth.
Yeah, well, I'm excited regardless, just because, after obviously going to the season, you got season tickets, you're going to see all these home games with Rodgers and all these night games and all that stuff. And then it turns into Zach Wilson again. And you think it might be repeats of the Lions, the Jaguars last year, the Ravens, etc. And then they're actually turning around where they're winning some games. They competed with the Chiefs. They should have freaking won that game. They beat the Bills. They beat the Eagles. It's actually been pretty fun to be at the stadium. So, hopefully Monday Night Football 4-3, they can take care of their business there. And then you're going to Vegas versus a pretty bad Raiders team. We'll see.
Are you still going? You were thinking about backing out of that Vegas game, but that was kind of on your preseason list of games to go to. Are you potentially going to that?
We'll see. We will see. It depends. It depends if Vinny could hook it up a little bit, but we'll get to that later. We'll get that in 2 weeks. So, Dakota, we'll say hello to you. Get Hunter Renfro, mentioning the Raiders, Kyle, and we'll kind of let the chat run this one a little bit, just because it's been a few. It's been over a week since the Eagles game, so we're not going to hit that right on the head. We'll kind of just drift around a little bit. Trade deadline is the 31st, which is, what is that, Monday, Tuesday?
That's Monday, 4:00. So
Monday at 4:00. Is there anything at this point, Kyle, that you want to see the Jets to do? Obviously, there's been a few
O-line and receiver. O-line and receiver for sure.
Anybody in mind? Obviously, Hunter Renfro is mentioned here, but any other targets that you've been heard float around that you think is a possibility?
Okay, so there's the Broncos wide receivers. Truthfully, I don't know that I'm really interested. I mean, I think they would definitely be an upgrade. And is it just going to be worth the price is what I really wonder. I was looking at some of Courtland Sutton's stats over his career, and they were kind of underwhelming. Like, as big as a guy as he is, his touchdown numbers are really kind of garbage. So is he like, NFL Denzel Mims in the red zone? That's less than thrilling. Jerry Jeudy, dude, you heard the Steve Smith assassination of him.
Oh my God, dude. And with that being said, Kyle, Steve Smith's my favorite receiver of all time. Like, he just is. I love the attitude when he was playing. Even if I don't agree with all of his opinions now, I didn't really know his opinions when I was watching him play when I was, 9 years old, 10 years old. But I love him. And then I didn't see it actually happen because I wasn't watching the game. I forget what I was doing. And I saw the aftermath on Twitter. Absolutely roasted him. And then there was some segment of it. I forget exactly when it happened. But I think it was at halftime. He's like, yeah, he has one catch right now or something like that, like following up the original beef. So he got absolutely cooked on was that Thursday Night Football? I believe it was, right?
Yeah, it was a Thursday night game.
Yeah.
Against the Chiefs, I believe, in Kansas City. Yeah.
And there's some guys out there, like we can talk about Jerry Jeudy or versus Sutton versus, obviously Mike Evans was a hope a couple of weeks ago, but they can actually win their division with how bad they are, that division is. But maybe Hollywood Brown, or you're talking about a Hunter Renfro.
Plus, I think if you're the Bucks, you're also realizing we're not going to probably be that high to draft a quarterback. And Baker he's not old, he is young. So he's one of these guys who you consider in that QB purgatory range where he's never going to be elite, but he could maybe be serviceable, a la Jared Goff, and you seriously consider, like, if he brings you to the playoffs and, he plays pretty well and he has played decent in his career at certain times, maybe you pay him, but you can't really give him a fair assessment if you don't have a quality receiver like Evans. So it does seem increasingly unlikely that he'd be dealt unless they just get absolutely obliterated tonight and Baker shits the bed and, maybe Mike Evans talks about wanting out. Then maybe
we want a big Bucks W tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, in terms of the receivers, it's just, I would like them to make a move, Kyle. Now, what's the more important position between tackle / even guard now for the Jets to bring in a receiver? Maybe a conversation for a different day, but you look at receiver with the Jets, and obviously Hardman's gone now, which, they traded up 25, 30 spots, whatever it is, from the 7th round to the 6th round, basically, for, Hardman, who they gave a $4 million contract with incentives, I think like up to $5.5 or $6 million, whatever exactly it was, but obviously a failed signing. And we could talk about why, and we have talked about why. I think once Rodgers goes down, it obviously limits his role. I hate that the people who say, oh, well, he lost his role to Gibson. He's caught 3 balls. He has a couple of rushes. He saw 4 offensive snaps or touches in the first 4 weeks. Like, he didn't lose his role.
Do you want to take a moment to maybe talk about that a little bit more? Like, why do you think what kind of plays and stuff out of what types of formations were they going to run with Rodgers using Hardman that they're not going to run now, to the point where Hardman was going to be, as we heard in the preseason, according to Connor Hughes, he's quote very involved in this offense, and now he's just completely uninvolved. Like, I just don't get such a disparity right there.
Yeah, I don't know if it's they wanted him for more deep shot type of plays where they're not running that with Zach Wilson, or if it's a thing where they thought they're going to be ahead of the sticks on a lot of these downs and they're going to run more motion and trick plays and jet sweeps and all that stuff with him. I don't know, but he got phased out. But once he was signed, Kyle, like I did the review and we talked about it. We didn't think he was going to be a great fit with Rodgers anyway, so I didn't really even necessarily understand the signing at the time. But yeah, you trade him, 30 spots up, which honestly, like at that point, Kyle, you want to get him off the team if he's not happy here, obviously, and you want to keep a good reputation through the league with other players because players will talk about that and consider that in free agency and stuff if you treat your players right. But nowadays, at the point where you're trading up like 30 picks from, I don't know, whatever the 7th round pick is to a 6th round pick, like 300 to 270, is it worth it at that point when you don't really have a lot of receiver depth? You don't, even if you want Gibson over him, Hardman has a 5. Is he worth that? So you can ask those questions about that trade. And obviously, it didn't work out. It is what it is. But past that, Kyle, we have Cobb playing about 50-ish% of the reps this season. I don't know exactly what the number is, but somewhere around 50% of the reps. We know that we were fine with him as receiver 5. Receiver 3 with a UDFA behind him with Irv, Charles, and Brownlee behind those guys. Like if you're playing a team who's, like let's say the Giants this week, I believe they're heavy man coverage when they're blitzing so much. Maybe it's a lot of zone blitzes. I don't really know a lot of their defense, but who's getting open versus man coverage on this team other than Garrett Wilson and Tyler Conklin? None of the receivers can really win. So getting somebody who's just decent, like we can argue over Hunter Renfro, is he worth the money, or Marquise Brown or whoever it is, but just adding somebody to this offense to get open, I think would legitimately help a ton. So, yeah.
And is even Brown going to be available? Because there's a lot of talk about how the Cardinals want to play Kyler, and the whole reason Brown was traded was for Kyler because the two of them played at Oklahoma and stuff and have a relationship. So, I suppose almost any player really is available if the price is right, but we don't really want to give up a ton for Hollywood Brown, who's really hasn't done, I don't think, a lot this year, and he is coming off a season-ending injury last year. So the Jets are definitely in a rough spot. Some of it's out of their control with the injuries and the retirement of Corey Davis, but failed signing, trading away Elijah Moore, who I don't know how he's been playing this year. It seems like he's had a couple moments, but seems like he's been kind of a little bit underwhelming. But the Jets need to do something, man. I don't know. And I'm sure that there's going to be people in the chat talking about Devontae Adams. There was a big Schefter report. Schefter? Hey, listen, his accuracy, his credibility isn't exactly, I guess, what it used to be, but he's usually pretty spot on. And there was a report that they have no interest in trading him. And even if they did, we've talked about this so much that how can that contract really work out?
I don't know.
Feasible.
It doesn't seem feasible. Like even getting him in the offseason seems pretty difficult. I don't know the exact contract numbers, but still somewhat difficult. So to do it in season, I don't see it. I don't see it happening for the Jets this year, especially considering Rodgers most likely. We hope he comes back, but how realistic is it? Would you rather just use those assets or less assets to get him later on, down the road when maybe it would even afford you more cap flexibility? Because I don't know what the hits they would have to take if they traded for him this year or this season versus, obviously in the 2024 off season. But and then you're looking at offensive line too, Kyle, at this point, and that's another kind of topic around the trade deadline here is there any moves to make there? Because obviously ABT is gone. We don't know how long Pittman's out. It seems that they didn't put him on IR. So he's probably gonna be back within the next couple of weeks, which when he went down, I just assumed it was a season ending thing based on Salah saying it's going to be a while, but you can't trust Salah. If he says it's going to be a week, it's a month. If he says it's going to be a while, it's a day. You don't really know with what he says, but is there any moves you would make there? Maybe trade. Well, I guess the old friends we'd have in like Tristan Colon would know the system. So you trade for a guy like that. You trade for a freaking Kelvin Beachum, backup right tackle on the Cardinals right now, old friend. Because listen, like people will bitch about it, like, Kelvin Beachum's terrible. Well, is he better than?
I would trade a 7th-round pick for Kelvin Beachum.
Is he better than Billy Turner at this point? And like the same thing with the receivers. Like, oh my God, they suck. Would you rather have Hunter Renfro and maybe have to overpay him for a couple of $1 million over having Randall Cobb take 50% of your snaps, yeah, maybe not ideal, but I like one situation over the other. So I think Hunter Renfro, if you were to trade for him, I don't know exactly how the contract works. I think that hits like $13 million this year, so I think we'd absorb most of that. Lawson's making about $8 million, so we have to pay another $5 million this year. Again, could be a little bit off on the numbers. And I think next year, I saw on Twitter, if it's a post June 1st, there's like a $5 million hit that could be spread over years for next year, and we save $8 million if we cut him. So basically, he's worth $18 million, and you'd have to spread out $5 million through the next 3 years if you were to trade for him. So is a guy like that worth it, Kyle? With the Lawson, with Lawson being a potential guy they would trade, Hunter Renfro for, whether it be for more picks or just straight up. That's been something that's been thrown around a little bit on Twitter. Because Lawson's obviously not seeing a lot of reps. I think he said something today, like he wants to help the Jets win, but he doesn't want to be a cheerleader at the same time. So, what are your thoughts?
I really haven't been impressed by Lawson at all this year. I'm not saying he hasn't had any pressures or anything like that. However, exactly you want to quantify that or define that, but he's been quite underwhelming. And listen, who am I going to play him over at this point? I don't want to play him over McDonald. I want to see McDonald, really get into that. He's not comfortable yet in that role, and it's just going to take him time and experience, but I think he'll eventually get there. Jermaine Johnson, he's had a couple of his best games strung together. Bryce Huff is an absolute animal coming off the edge right now. So, sorry, Carl, but really love the signing when it happened, but, we knew health was always going to be a factor. It has been a factor, season-ending injury last year, injury that sidelined him for the vast majority of the preseason this year, and then he just really hasn't looked that explosive this year. So
the video of the back, him running straight up, just ended it all. That's when all my hopes crashed down for him. At that moment, I was like, okay, this might be bad.
Yeah, he's kind of useless, and it's just, you're in this weird spot where you always want depth and stuff, but you can only have so many guys active on game day, and of course, you're so you have so much depth at D-line. Any given week, you're going to put him inactive or Clemens inactive or somebody. Yeah. And, like Clemens was inactive against the Eagles, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I'd take Clemens in the run game over Carl Lawson. So Clemens and special teams. Clemens gives you something on special teams. I don't know if Lawson gives you anything on special teams. So, to keep Carl Lawson here with that contract is even going to suit up week in, week out. Like, on a third down situation, he might be able to give you some juice off the edge, especially if you're a little thin there because of some injuries or whatever. But there's a reason he's not playing a lot, and it's very justifiable.
It seems like he lost some of his agility too. Like, and he was never necessarily like an agile player. Like, he was more power than agility, but he could still win with some agility, like combined with his power. But when you completely lose it, he's just not going to be. He's not like a big enough player to just bull rush and be powerful on the edge, especially with the short arms and stuff. So I think he just lost a little bit. Hopefully you can get rid of him. Again, love the signing like you did. And then, post Lawson, there's been some Dalvin Cook stuff, today. I didn't really see the tweets or like all the chatter about it, but apparently he's, saying he's not happy with his role and he needs more touches.
Trade for him. The dude was sitting available for the Pickens in free agency for, 9 years.
Yeah. Now trade for him. Now trade assets to take the contract that nobody else wanted to sign him
after
to. And
he's looked like shit this season and fumbled.
Yeah. He said do you believe him, Kyle, that with more touches he would be better? Because that's apparently what he was throwing out there today, that he needs to get basically into a rhythm. He's a rhythm runner.
Listen, there might be a little bit of truth to that, but at the same time, you start taking more and more injuries and stuff, or more and more hits.
He's averaging like 2 yards a carry.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. He's looked bad. Like, he's looked totally not explosive. Like, on any given play, like there was the one play, I think it was right after Zach hit Garrett Wilson on the long pass, where Zach, he knew he was going to Garrett Wilson all the way, but he looks off the safety and then goes to Garrett late, backed up in his own end zone. The play right after, I believe they ran some type of toss to the left to Brees, and Brees, it was kind of clogged up, but Brees on any given play, he could potentially make a cutback, and he's just sometimes just an arm away of breaking it for huge yardage. You don't see any of that with Dalvin. Like, when is Dalvin going to make like a big explosive run where he kind of like separates from people? he's not threatening any defense. No defense is scared of him right now. Like defenses will stack the box.
It's not in that, dude. Like it's, and I typically hesitate before I say that, but it seems like there's like a lack of effort thing too in terms of like driving for more yards and stuff. So I don't like to like say that unless I really see it, but you could see it a little bit with him. Like he doesn't want the sauce basically. So if you could trade, I don't know again who's gonna trade for him, but there's something there's roster or there's bonuses for being active on game day. So do the Jets have the gumption to just not make him active and save some money with him and just sit him on the bench? And it's weird because I've seen some like Michael Carter, I'm not gonna say like slander, but people kind of talking about, okay, well maybe you bring up Izzy and you make Carter inactive, but one, who is pass protecting? Because Kyle, you've watched and I've watched. Michael Carter's actually been pretty good in terms of third down pass protection this year. Mm-hmm. And with that, like, has he been such a bad runner this year? Like, he's only been running the ball 2 or 3 times. It's not like I don't watch him like, oh my god, that's a terrible play. Like, I don't see a bad player
as a runner. No, but he's dropped some passes that he definitely would love to have gotten back, despite the fact that he hasn't really gotten a lot of balls thrown his way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now past that and kind of bringing it back to the offensive line, and we'll get back to the chat. But with talking about trade targets and all that stuff, just again to kind of round it out. Dwayne Brown comes back. What do you do?
I do like Becton at left tackle. He seems to be better there. Granted, we haven't seen a ton of him at right tackle. Let's see. I don't like Max Mitchell at right tackle. I don't think he's been very good. I understand he's a hell of a lot younger and more upside than Dwayne Brown, but I think I'm going Dwayne Brown left tackle, Mekhi Becton right tackle.
Oh yeah, I'm not with you there. I'm keeping Becton at left tackle, man. Like I think he could be the player who's your future at left tackle. Now we have to talk about contracts. Do they agree with Huff where they don't have to use a franchise on him, the franchise tag on him, where they can franchise Becton with it? Like there's so many possibilities that could happen, but I would prefer to ride Becton out the next 10 games and see what he could be, or really 11 games, and see what he could be at left tackle. See if he can stay healthy. I don't want to be moving him around a ton. So if Dwayne Brown wants to come back, like listen, I know he's played his entire career at left tackle, so he's either a really expensive backup left tackle, or if you want to play, dude, play right tackle. Like we saw Jason Peters play guard last year. Can he not do it? And even if he can't do it, Kyle, at least try. Why not try? And if Max Mitchell's a better player, then Max Mitchell's a better player. But I'm not moving Becton at this point. He's staying right at left tackle.
I do not have a strong take to argue with you on this. So because like I said, Becton has looked pretty damn good at left. He started there left. He wants to play left, and I'm rooting for the guy strongly to be the future. I mean, I do think like he's very immature in some ways for sure, and you could see that with his social media antics.
Okay.
Maybe not the sharpest tool in the shed either. But Kyle,
I'm gonna interrupt you before you finish. I thought you were gonna pull the old man thing and be like, well, that one play he did point at the guy and he should have finished the play. I thought you were going there. I was getting ready to cringe.
I didn't have a problem with him doing that at all.
Okay, neither do I. Talk your shit on the field.
Talk your shit on the field. Like, dude, you embarrassed the guy. He wasn't going to make that play anyway. Like, I had no problem with it. Like, there's even some like he was kind of far. So like, if you go to bury him, like you could maybe miss and then give the guy an opportunity. Like, no problem with the play at all. But I want Becton to be the future left tackle of the team. I mean, they drafted him to be the blindside pass protector. And if you just like look at some of the still photos that we saw, like him celebrating with Hackett and stuff, like how he celebrated with Brees after Brees scored the touchdown against the Eagles. Like this guy, he does like playing football. I mean, like he's one of these guys who there are some players who are interested in other things other than football. Like I think Becton is like a true sports guy. Like you can see the way he tweets about basketball.
Yeah, the heat nonstop.
Like football, like you have to love the game, and players who do like other sports, who are involved in other sports, tend to love the game more. So I do want him to stay at left tackle. Max Mitchell does irk me a little bit. But I guess the question is, and here's my question for you: Dwayne Brown was terrible when we saw him this year.
Yeah, awful.
Saw from him last year. Let's not act like he was good because he wasn't. But
below average.
Yeah, he was serviceable for sure. And he was better than what we saw from Fant last year. So
We've seen
how
McDermott
much-
starting at tackle.
how much better-
There's
how
worse
much
out there.
better do we think that Brown is going to be than Max Mitchell? But then there is also the thing where Max Mitchell could continue to get better week in,
Yeah.
week out. And
He wasn't good versus the Eagles, but he wasn't like brutally bad. Like we've seen some bad games. Like he wasn't great, but he was somewhat serviceable. I'll say. I don't want to give him too much credit, but it's not like he completely destroyed the game for the Jets, and that one. And the offensive line, Schweitzer got bowled a couple of times. He fell on his ass. The one time he tripped over a guy's leg, but the offensive line was for the most part, decent. I would say those guys a little bit below average, but McGovern was fine. Tomlinson, credit to him. We wanted him to be at least serviceable this year. I think he's become serviceable, which we still want we want like a Pro Bowl level player, obviously. And then Becton was good. Like I would say his pass protection is better than his run game right now, which is kind of a little bit odd. But there's been some times in the run game where he doesn't leave a combo or he's misjudging a guy in the second level. I highlighted that a little bit on the review. But overall, yeah, I kind of turned Max Mitchell into the entire offensive line. So continue on with the offensive line if you had to. I don't know if I interrupted you from a point, which I probably did, knowing myself.
No.
And if not, just the offensive line's performance, I guess, in that game.
It's interesting. Like so many of Becton's good blocks were always on like outside zone runs, or some even on inside zone runs too. But now it's just the nature. Like he's asked to combo block more and kind of get guys on the second level more than he did his rookie year when he had a lot of those good blocks where he could just kind of take the guy who was right out in front of him. He didn't have to think too much and then kind of just, throw him out of the picture. So I think it's kind of just a thing where like, he's maybe just has to get used to the blocking scheme a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And once he does, I think he'll be just fine because he does a lot of things well in the run game and he's obviously very powerful and long. So, yeah, the offensive line, in terms of going against that D-line, granted, they didn't have Jalen Carter, who is an absolute beast. And when we were hearing about him slipping, that was the guy who I wanted at 15. But obviously, the
Can
Eagles,
you imagine him and Quentin Williams, dude? That would just be absurd.
So we got a little bit of break there, but they were still loaded on the D-line. And I think that all things considered, going against that D-line, I think that they were fine.
Yep. No, I actually
you might be convincing me that sticking Becton at left, keeping him there, and keeping Mitchell at right, and potentially maybe putting Brown right if Mitchell starts to suck and if Brown is obviously open to it.
Yeah,
that might be the right thing. So
if Brown was some solidified guy where I knew he was going to be like at least solid, then I would say, okay, do it. But what's the chance that now you move Becton to right tackle, he gets hurt or he starts playing worse and you're flip-flopping him around, Brown comes in, he sucks ass again. And then what's the difference between, or how much better is he at left tackle and Becton misplaying his, or miscast at right tackle versus the lineup of Becton at left tackle and Mitchell. So is the juice really worth the squeeze there with the risk of basically fucking up the chemistry and all this stuff? Like, Tomlinson's been over there with him and, whoever else has to get used to, each other on the offensive line, like build some continuity on the offensive line. So I don't want to screw it up for the slight chance that Brown could be okay and is going to be much better than Max Mitchell.
And to your point, Becton, I don't think has played alongside, meaning right next to,
Schweitzer
or
maybe a little bit in camp,
or Tippmann, at least not in any actual game. Reps, so
no. Before we get to the chat, before we even get to the game, and we talked about the offensive line there a little bit. And again, we're going to bounce around a lot because we haven't been here for 2 weeks. But question I want to ask before we even get into all the players and stuff: the decision with the Sirianni letting Salah running in for the touchdown at the end of the game, right there. The Jets Salah got criticized a lot for that. I don't understand the criticism. I would actually criticize Sirianni a little bit more than Salah on that play, but I was curious to hear your thoughts before I delve into it.
Well, okay. Remind me what the exact score was at the time.
The interception?
Yeah.
It was
before Brees runs it in for a touchdown. What's the score?
It's 12-10.
12-10.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and the Eagles had how many timeouts?
They had 2 timeouts, so there was like a minute and 50-ish left. So if they stop them there and they kick a field goal, the Eagles have 50 seconds to go down and get in field goal range to kick.
And all they need is a field goal wins them the game. It doesn't just
field goal wins it.
Tie it. So
instead of letting them score, a team who hasn't scored all day, who's been struggling in the red zone, you're going to let them score a touchdown, and you have confidence that Jalen Hurts is going to drive the field and get 6 points against this defense, who you haven't moved the ball against in how many drives? They shut them out in the second half, right? So you have faith they're going to be able to drive on that defense with, little time in the game. So like people blame Salah for that one, but I tell them to run in there and have faith in your defense. I think there's criticism that's almost deserved towards Sirianni there as well.
I completely agree with your point. Like it is. Yeah. I mean, you didn't watch the broadcast, at least not live.
No, I'm gonna tell you right now, Kyle. It took me a little bit to remember some of the plays of that game. I watched. I was like, oh, okay, that's a good play because we got after a little bit before the Eagles game.
I bet you did. I bet you did. Especially a 4:25 start.
Yeah,
you were there for quite a while. I bet.
Good time.
So, Mark Sanchez. I don't want to say eviscerated Salah, but he definitely really
did he leave that brigade? Is that why that all happened? Did he? Because like you, Kyle, I don't want to speak poorly about Jets fans, but you'll see some stuff on TV, and then everybody runs with that opinion. So it was that one that was led by Sanchez.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Jets fans that love Mark Sanchez because he won 4 playoff games. So and certainly a lot of the guys who came after him did not have that playoff success. So And listen, Sanchez is very charming and things like that. So there are some reasons to like him. I mean, he wasn't a very good quarterback, but he wasn't a good quarterback. He was a bad quarterback. He held the team back. He might have played decent in some of those playoff games, but he held that team back on a week in, week out basis.
There's people who are going to come after you, Kyle.
Whatever. Why didn't he make it when he went to the vaunted Chip Kelly offense? Anyway, so I guess that's really where it started because Sanchez was quite harsh to Salah. I mean, like it was something like it wasn't just like a little passing comment. Like he spent, probably several minutes talking about the decision. Yeah. So to your point, I don't think Sirianni the Jets were on the 7-8 yard line. I mean, like in the red zone, getting 7-8 yards for a touchdown is no easy feat
against your defense and your defensive line.
Which hasn't let you in the end zone all day, not even really that close to be honest. I mean, like they were really stout down there.
Like you get the ball back with 50 seconds. You have what? You have 50 seconds to move the ball. Let's say 25, 40 yards. You have AJ Brown. You have Devontae Smith versus Craig James and Tay Hayes. You don't have any faith in your team to move the ball there and maybe get a field goal.
Bryce Hall too, Joe.
Yeah. No, of course, and Tay Hayes didn't play it. And that's still my thinking is that for Salah you have faith in your defense while kind of saying the opposite for Sirianni. But I don't think it was some terrible decision by Salah. Like I get it.
I'm going to say this too though, but
and Kyle, sorry.
Brees needs to realize, oh shit, they're really letting me run in.
Yeah.
Take a knee at the 1 yard line.
Okay, Kyle. So he does that, and then we get stuffed. We kick a field goal, and then they come back down.
Okay. You get stuffed. If you get stuffed on 3 consecutive plays, and then you kick the field goal on 4th down, how much time are the Eagles going to have left?
50 seconds.
Would it be 50?
Yeah, about 50 seconds to kick a field goal. At that point, I'm okay with having faith in my defense to not let up 6 points when you haven't let up 6 points the entire second half, and and even
I think Sirianni deserves more criticism, but I don't have a problem throwing out a criticism for Salah as well.
I get it either way though. It's more of a 50-50 thing. It's something that I don't think deserves criticism. Even if you are against the decision to run it in there. 55-45 in favor of maybe not scoring there, or 60-40, 65-35. I just don't think it was some horrendous decision where he should be overly criticized there. Because what if you don't score? I'm okay with scoring and having faith in your defense. He's a defensive coach. I'm honestly completely fine with it. So let's see. Say hello to some people in the chat. Again, obviously behind as per usual. This was from. We started at 7, right? Okay, let's say we did not start at 6:06. We're not that far behind.
7:07, 7:08, something. Okay. Like that.
Yeah, well, Kyle started the night off hot with trying to fix his mic and realizing he muted himself for about 2 minutes there. So
I did, but then you went on rambling for another 6-7 minutes after that.
I did. Yeah, we had a conversation. So did Sauce and Reed clear injury? They both practiced full today, right?
2 days in a row. So I mean, apparently everyone keeps saying that's good news. So.
Lionheart. One last thing. Reason I've been such a plus mind with the Jets is because the AFC is wide open and there's no clear cut best team in the AFC this year. Yeah, I would still say the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC this year. But moving on, I hate Giants fans, and
every team is flawed.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the Eagles showed, and I've been saying this, Jalen Hurts, and I think he showed it in that game. I would not say he's a top 5 quarterback, man.
Kyle, you didn't watch my review, but we've been saying the same thing, and it is what it is. We said it last year. I don't view him, and I said this exact thing in the review. I'm not trying to say he's
Jalen Hurts on this Jets team. How he's going to do better than Zach Wilson, no doubt about it. But
oh yeah,
he's got a lot of things to like, man. The dude is hard to bring down. He's got mobility, right? He's got some touch on his throws and things like that. But in terms of a straight passer from the pocket, the dude has a long way to go.
I said it in the review that I don't want to be overly critical of him, but when you hear the quarterbacks be ranked, and it's always the Mahomes, especially before the season, it was Mahomes, it was Allen, it was Burrow, and then Hurts was there for a lot of people at 4 or 5, and I was always with the mindset I view him more towards the 9, 10, 11, 12-ish area than up there. And Kyle, and I know the rush probably got to him a little bit, and credit to Salah and Ulbrich and some of their blitz schemes, and Huff as a spy, in the Denver game a few times, JJ, how they used him standing up as a spy sometimes, all that stuff, credit to them. And maybe that got in Jalen Hurts, head a little bit, but there was plays where that one concept, I don't know what it was. It was like a curl and a flat, and he's staring at AJ Brown. AJ Brown is wide open, and then I think that's a play where JFM or JJ bull rush, and then he gets out of being sandwiched, and then rolls out to the right, and then throws a ball off his back foot to a guy on the sideline. I think the ball is dropped on the sideline there. I could show it, but it's just he's just so hot and cold in some of his reads.
14 was either Gainwell or Quez Watkins that dropped it. Something.
Yeah, on the sideline, sideline. They dropped it on their knees, they try to catch it kind of out of bounds almost. So yeah, you remember the play. I was gonna pull it up, but if you remember that play, so he's just very hot and cold. But nonetheless, yeah, you obviously credit to the Jets defense in that game, right? But we'll bounce back, or we'll come back to the game. But speaking of Giants fans, I want to bring this up specifically because Kyle hates Giants fans, I think, more than any other fan base, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that they're the worst, but it's just personal for me.
Personal for you, and this has been a talking point of this week as well, Kyle. Is this a rivalry? What do you think between these two teams? Is it between the teams? JFM kind of said, "Who cares?" That you saw that quote or that quote on Twitter. Who gives a shit? I want to just be.
That's what they're saying to the media, but that's not what they're saying behind the scenes. Come on, we know that.
You want to beat a team that you share the stadium with. You
share a stadium with. You share some of the same media guys with. Bragging rights. Some fans go between back and forth both teams. Oh, I'm a Jets and a Giants fan. Rivka, we're talking about you. These players are talking about that. Don't kid yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, and you hate the Giants for whatever your reasons are, and I am a Jets fan.
It's a whole little brother shit. I'm, as a person who is a younger brother, I'm a middle child, but getting that shit personally, but not that my older brother did that. He's a Bills fan, but oh yeah, you guys are the little brother of New York. And
yeah, Giants fans have been talking a lot of shit this week about the Jets and them renting the stadium and how I don't know. I've seen quite a bit of Giants slandering the Jets on Twitter this week. So
those two Super Bowls, 2007 and 2011 seasons are so bittersweet because on the one hand, Tom Brady and Belichick losing, I'm not going to cry over that, but seeing Eli Manning hoist 2 Lombardi trophies, ugh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I said, you hate them because of the little brother thing. I hate them because I'm the only Jets fan in my entire family. From all my uncles, everybody, Giants fans. So it's my dad's fault. I'm a Jets fan, but going to Thanksgiving and stuff, and especially during those years, 07, 11, I'm a teenager getting a bunch of shit from my uncles about how shitty the Jets are and the Giants winning Super Bowls and all that stuff. So I would like to kick a shot at them. I think it's more between the fans. I think the fans hate each other maybe more than the players do, while also recognizing the players do think about that stuff. I'm sure as a competitor, but Michael Jordan documentary, they find anything. They find anything.
Being a professional athlete. I mean, these guys, to a certain extent, they're in it together. When you think of collective bargaining, when you think of the conversation we had over the summer with running backs uniting together, these players, just look at how they congratulate each other right after a hard fought game, and they're shaking each other's hands and exchanging jerseys and stuff. of course it's more of the fans than it is the players, but the players, whatever could get them, so I've mentioned this story, I think, before, that when I was playing flag football after I officially retired from playing contact football, I was playing in a league, and one of my buddies, he used to
Officially retired? Did you write like a note or a letter or something like that? Like, did you officially retire? Write a letter?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
But anyway, my one buddy, he used to talk a lot of shit, and sometimes he used to get flags from the ref for running his mouth too much. And I used to say, like, why are you, like, you're not even that good. Like, why are you running your mouth so much? Like, let your play do the talking. And he's like, yeah, but when I talk, it helps me play harder, because like I feel like I have to back up my talk or whatever. So it's like, as a player, whatever you could use to find that extra edge. And I was even just mentioning this Tom Brady clip that I saw on the interwebs in the past couple of weeks, where Tom Brady's like, I didn't really have too many friends from other teams because, it helped me kind of like make the games more personal. So when I ran out of the stadium, I was saying, let's fucking go. Like, I meant it. Like, I wanted to beat the shit out of those guys. So as a player, whatever you could use for extra motivation in any given game, that matters. So some of these players are most definitely doing that this week.
And the Jets seem to have a bunch of players who are like, they're motivated, and I think they're here for the right reasons. Like, we don't have too many players who are just here for the money. Like, Dalvin Cook might not give a shit. Like, he probably doesn't care about the Giants, but like the JJs of the world, the Sauces, like they want to beat their crosstown rival for sure. But I'm really hoping they're not going to lose. Which JR brings up typical Jet shit though. We'll beat the Eagles, lose to the Giants. Kyle, the Jets suck after the bye. Is that trickling into your head as a concern?
How are they off the bye with Salah? That's what I'm wondering.
The Pats last year. What was the bye? The Pats away last year was the game after the bye. Well, I forget what it was. His first season.
So it's probably after they played the Falcons, because they were in London. So I'm assuming they had a bye after that, the first year, right?
Yeah, I don't remember. Because it was Titans, Falcons, and I forget who they played after the Falcons. Yeah, I don't know. Someone will say in the chat if you monitor the bottom of it, I'm sure. Sneakers or boots, fellas, 3-3 at the bye. We'll take it. Wide receiver signing is the flashy one, but I'd rather sign a guard anyone you have highlighted. Well, it depends on when Tippmann's coming back. If it's going to be a season-ending thing, then I would have more of a need for guard. But I think they can get by for 2-3 weeks with Schweitzer.
Honestly, like I'm more concerned with tackle needs than guard. Like, you got Schweitzer, and I think in due time, it seems like Tippmann's going to be back. So, and I think Tippmann, the upside with him playing guard is so much higher, and we've seen some moments from him at guard versus tackle. It's like, Mitchell. I don't know. For me, it's mostly been bad, especially when you consider how he looked in the preseason. So, I'd rather go tackle.
If you had to choose, Kyle, tackle or receiver, only one can happen. Which one would you do?
I think you need a receiver, truthfully. I mean, this offense can't run through Garrett Wilson, man. Like, you got Garrett and Lazard as your two. Like, right now, I mean, like, this receiving core right now, where do they rank in the league? They're definitely in the 20s, but like, is it the low 20s?
Yeah, and it kind of depends, right? Like, can you hide Max Mitchell maybe a little bit, or can you hide the receivers? I meant with playing more like 12 personnel and incorporating a lot of Ruckert. So like, it depends if that's your view, but if you're going to be running, 50+% 11 personnel, like most teams do, if not every single team actually in the NFL, and Cobb's gonna have to be out there 50% of the reps, then I think a receiver is a bigger need, because Cobb's not getting open. Lazard is a guy who is not going to get open on a route by route basis. So it's only Garrett Wilson at this point. So I think you need another guy just to freaking get open. Where Max Mitchell.
Let's think about this for a moment, though. Yeah. I think there's a huge part of the Jets coaching staff. I mean, like, even Salah saying, "Hey, listen, what he's doing is amazing." Speaking about Aaron Rodgers, but he doesn't want to talk about any timetables and whether or not it's even realistic for him to return. You almost kind of wonder, like, if the Jets try to go out and get like a decent name at wide receiver, could that potentially harm the team? Because this is weird, because when they actually let Zach Wilson play this season, surprisingly, when they actually let him play and don't play scared, he's actually done okay, surprisingly. But the thing is you're not going to turn into what the Dolphins offense has looked like this season so far. You're not with Zach Wilson. I don't think you're going to be a team that's just going to go around, sling it, slinging around and put up a lot of points on a week in, week out basis.
Mhm.
So maybe the best formula for this team is to run 12, 13 personnel, just run it a lot, have low scoring games, rely on your defense, and just grind out wins that way, rather than, oh, we get a receiver now, and now we're going to try to, open up the offense again, and let's see what Zach Wilson can do. And then it does lead to some stupid interceptions, turnovers, fumbles, and things like that. So maybe, getting that receiver and trying to do more 11 personnel, or even going 10 every now and then, maybe that wouldn't be such the great idea for the team. Maybe they should just kind of stick with being conservative. I don't know. I have mixed feelings because,
but with that being said, it's 2023 and you got to pass the ball, right?
Exactly.
We're all acknowledging that.
Exactly. Because it seems like we're always in the same place as the Jets. Like, oh, we got to rely on the running game and the defense.
Unleash Izzy. We have.
I agree, Marvin. Unleash. Yeah.
I see an I'm so sick of Dalvin Cook, which then Rivka says taking an I told you so lap on Cook. I think you and I, Rivka, everybody from JetX, pretty much said that we're not down for the Cook signing. So there's a lot of people telling you that this was not the guy we wanted to pour assets into. When we're talking about him being okay with him at $4 million a year, he got $8 million, Kyle. So and even at $4 million would have been an overpay, but I would have been okay with it. So yeah, there's that. That was a terrible signing. We all knew it. So the fact that they even made it makes me legitimately question, either their skill and their talent evaluation or how much Rodgers runs them. Because at a certain point, to be like, dude, listen, watch this play, watch this play, watch this play. You play in the NFL, you could see this sucks. Like, shouldn't they be able to say like, hey, Rodgers, watch this 20 play cut up of Cook and tell me if you really want to pay him $8 million? Or would you rather use that on Calvin Beachum, trade a 7th round pick and take on his contract, wherever the hell that may be. Best also was good in Joe and Kyle. Oh, I see we got a super chat in here from Jan. I believe the Jets are 0-7 in the past 7 bye weeks. Is that true?
And they were terrible under Rex too, and it's been a while since Rex has been here.
Always, and just in general under Bulls and everybody else, and under Gase, we just sucked in general. So we lose every single game. So by whether it be week 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 17, we're probably going to lose regardless. So that kind of does trickle into it, right, Kyle? It's like, yeah, we're always just bad. So is the post buy thing maybe just a little bit overinflated at this point?
Yeah, I guess a little bit. I mean, like, you don't want to think, oh, teams are cursed or whatever. Like, why is this trend continuing over several different coaching staffs or whatever? Maybe they're just getting really tough teams outside of the bye, but it's like, no, they're really not. Like, how many of those losses came to teams like the Dolphins who weren't even very good or whatever? So it is quite frustrating because teams are supposed to be very good off the bye. You think about, oh, Andy Reid is so good off the bye. Bill Belichick is really good off the bye. It's like, yeah, good coaches, when they have that extra week to prepare, they should be good off the bye. Anyway, thank you, Jan, very much. Joe, next week, sure. I definitely got to log into StreamYard so that I can pull up these super chats as soon as they come in.
We'll do that. But again, I think we've kind of just sucked in general, but you'd like to see them come out with some fire after the bye week and hopefully maybe make defensive adjustments a little bit earlier. Maybe the offense figures out some of the red zone problems because and by the way, I was going to talk about the past teams. It was frustrating that they sucked after the bye week, but it was also frustrating that like those teams of the past, even when the Jets were shitty, they always had a good defensive line. There would always be teams that we'd play with shitty offensive lines, and they can never take advantage of bad offensive lines. Even when we had a good defensive line, it always made no sense to me. But yeah,
let's be honest though, like the Jets, even those years they had good defensive lines. Not until very recently did they have guys who were actually kind of like, who can come off the edge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They just were lacking that. I mean, like, so in smart teams were like, okay, well, we're just going to, we're going to keep someone in to protect on the inside, we'll make sure the slide protection's right and stuff. And we're not going to fear you. We'll keep extra guys home to block, and whatever.
Mm-hmm. Some people talking about the Giants game. The Giants, like, I get they've had a couple of better weeks on defense against the Bills, who seemingly have a good week and then a bad week where Josh Allen will completely implode. But they barely beat the Commanders, right? 14-7. And I get they had a couple. I think they had a red zone fumble or something like that prohibited them from maybe scoring 21. But that's not necessarily a win to write home about. They barely squeaked one out against the Cardinals. They got They got blown out versus the Cowboys. So this Giants team, like, okay, maybe you're a little bit nervous that their linebackers are okay. or they're at least solid. I think.
According to PFF, they have like the number 1 linebacker in the league. I don't even know who
Yeah,
that person is.
Yes, and then their defensive line, you have Lawrence, you have Williams, you have Thibodeau. Like there's some guys on the defensive line, but looking at their offense, dude, like okay, we're not necessarily the best rush defense.
Hey,
in the
they
league.
got your boy coming back for this game. Your boy, your number 1 tackle prospect, Mr. Andrew Thomas himself.
Oh, is he coming back this game? Was that confirmed today?
According to Schefter, this past week, he was saying something like that he had a setback in practice, that he's not going to play this week, meaning last week, but he's scheduled to come back against the Jets.
At the end of the day, like I get people who say that they want to play teams at their full strength and all that stuff, but I would rather not see Andrew Thomas than us just win. I thought you were going with the Evan Neal route he's coming back.
Oh, well, that's another one of your favorites too. But yeah, that was obviously
so their offense, like even if their defense is strong on the defensive line and all that stuff, like their secondary is nothing to write home about. Their corners are okay, Deontay Banks and whoever else. So I think they can put up at least like a few, some points on the Giants. And in terms of them attacking our defense, like you hope the defense comes out, a little bit quicker than they have in the past. But how they're going to attack us? Like, okay, Saquon Barkley.
But who do you rather face? Do you rather face Jones or do you rather face Tyrod?
Dude, so I'm honestly 50-50 because and maybe it's trickling in because the last couple times we've seen Tyrod, whether it be like the preseason, I remember we saw him in preseason. I don't know who that was with recently, but we kicked the shit out of him. And then that Browns game before Baker came in a couple of years ago, like we were dominating him. He was really, really bad in that game too. So maybe it's
Tyrod throws with no anticipation, dude. Even in this preseason, the preseason game where Hyatt, had a good route against Sauce, and coming in motion, Sauce really couldn't get a hand on him. Tyrod waits too long to throw that ball. He's always been to throw a quarterback, zero anticipation to his game. At this point, when he's in his 30s, is even that escapable? Are you worried about his legs? I'm not. I'd rather face Tyrod, truthfully.
Yeah, just because maybe Jones has like a higher ceiling where he could break a run for 40 yards and maybe he bounces back. There's a reason they paid him. Like he's had a few. I think he's definitely maybe overrated by Giants fans, but he's had a few games where he's at least looks pretty solid, So is Tyrod still possible? Is that
Jones' rookie year? The last time we played the Giants, he wasn't bad in that game.
Yeah.
He had some bad fumbles in that game, but he also had some pretty nice throws.
Mm-hmm. What is up to Rusty? All Giants fans think they're going to win, and of course, fans always talk themselves into wins. And we're the crosstown rival. They're going to. I
wish I was that confident that the Jets are going to win, but I think I'm probably also more realistic than some of those stupid Giants fans.
Yeah. Wayne gonna have some words with Blewett saying Smith is his favorite wide receiver. Oh, dude, I don't care. All my favorite players of all time are not necessarily Jets. Like it's all about and Wayne.
Who are we talking about? Wayne
Corbett. I'm assuming it's Wayne.
Oh.
It's Wayne Corbett. He's involved with Jets X Factor and all that stuff. But when did Wayne retire? What year did he retire, Kyle? Off the top, do you know what year that was? Like 4 or 5?
I don't know for sure.
3? Yeah, but even during I was 10, 11 years old, so I didn't really necessarily appreciate him. Where Steve Smith was a little bit later, I believe. And Brian Dawkins is my favorite player of all time. Like I have no problem.
Wayne Corbett is not a stupid person. He's a smart person. He obviously knows that Steve Smith is a better player than he was.
Kyle, not your top 3 receivers of all time, but your favorite 3 receivers of all time. What would be your lineup?
I think Larry Fitzgerald's in there for sure. You want to talk about it? I liked him. I remember, dude, when he was on the cover of NCAA football back in like early 2000s, and then he was like the 3rd overall pick. I actually had a Larry Fitzgerald jersey. I remember rooting for him in the Super Bowl. Really wanted him to win. Just Larry Fitz. Kind of a cool story. Okay, I'm going on too long, I guess. He's one of them.
That's a more passive question.
It's hard because sometimes I don't like the personalities. T.O. was an absolute beast.
He was a monster on the field, dude.
So I don't know. T.O., you really have to love his game, man. He's a monster. 3.
Larry Fitzgerald, T.O., and
you're talking all time. Oh man.
So while you're thinking of your third, I'm gonna go with Steve Smith. Randy Moss is like the same, like T.O. Like he was just dominant when I was young, and obviously he's probably the second best or third best receiver of all time. So he's in there. Jericho Cotchery is my third. I love Jaco, man. So that would be my 3.
Yeah, let me think a little bit more about my third one. Because you're asking me for favorites. We're not talking best or anything like that.
Jaco's not the best receiver of all time, that's for sure. Neither is Steve Smith. But you didn't pick two. You said T.O. and Larry Fitzgerald. They're pretty up there, in all-time receivers. But boys, if we're buying the Titans are selling, I'd rather make a play for DeAndre Hopkins. But it's kind of the same thing as Cook. If we didn't want him in the offseason and you didn't want to sign him, why are you gonna trade for him now for the same contract you weren't gonna sign him for?
Well, I think the Jets are more desperate now. So, but you don't want to be that team that makes moves out of desperation. So.
Mm-hmm. Rivka said, I heard Terrence Marshall from Carolina is available, though. I don't know if he's really worth much. Yeah, he was like his second or third round pick a couple of years ago.
He's one of these guys who seems to get talked up every year, but I haven't ever seen him really do anything of substance. Mm-hmm. So, not really.
like a flyer pick, a 7th round pick or something like that. Like, is it worth a shot over a Cobb? Like, the thing is, obviously, I could watch him and say absolutely not.
Sure, you want to throw a conditional 7th or whatever, or a 7th without the condition to go and get him. I have no problem with that, but that can't be your only move. You need to do something you need to get like a guy who's actually proven it on the field for a decent portion of time. and I really wonder so Renfro seems to be the most realistic option that's kind of thrown out there. And if we could talk about him for a moment, what the hell happened with him? Because it almost, and I know that he thrived under Gruden.
Yeah.
I know he had a big injury last year, but why is he not having any success now that he's at least seemingly healthy with the Raiders?
Apparently it's a thing with him and McDaniels. Like they don't see eye to eye, and he's one of those guys who's stubborn as hell. And if you don't see eye to eye with him, he brought in Myers. Now, is that the positive Renfro spin where you're a Renfro fan, or is it something where they see decline in practice where they don't want to talk about it after injuries and all that stuff? So if he's 2021 Renfro, and not this year and last year's Renfro, where he's not really playing this year, and last year I believe he was injured. If he's anything like he was in 2021, like at the minimum, even if he's not 1,000-yard guy with the Jets, if you can get like what Crowder was in the first couple of years with the Jets here, and Renfro, maybe obviously $13 million is an overpay, Kyle, but that would be a nice option in the slot to get open because we really only have one guy at the receiver position who can open versus man coverage. Again, Conklin can, but that's not enough in 2023.
I know it's, I'm thinking like. There've been a lot of slot receivers, short weight slot receivers that have had success under Josh McDaniels. You think about like they ran like a lot of juke routes with Julian Edelman, Jules, and like Wes Welker obviously had some really historic seasons from the slot. It just kind of seems like I don't know. It's confusing to me that he hasn't had some success, and it just makes me wonder if he's actually physically declined. So
it's impossible to answer. Like if he is 80% of what he was in 2021, okay, fine, I'll take him. But we don't know that answer, and it doesn't seem like anybody really has a strong, opinion on it either way about what exactly has happened with him in Las Vegas. But Bryce Huff should be 9 up over Evan Neal all day long, dude. I'm looking forward to it. If they don't get 1 sack at least on Evan Neal, I'm gonna have some issues.
Hey, I like Bryce Huff, but you're comparing him to greatness now. That's like comparing some famous warrior in the Roman Coliseum against some Joe Schmo out there. Come on, Evan Neal is top notch.
Yeah, top notch. We should have taken him.
What was the expression that he used that when he got snippy with the media? It's like comparing what to what.
Lions
I didn't hear it. I just
was it lions to sheep or lambs or something like that, which is hilarious because they're like not to get too involved. And I hope he's not listening. And if he does, it is what it is. There's a person in my town who like his whole business motto is lions, not sheep. So it's everywhere. You see him driving his car on his windows of his store. It's lions, not sheep. It's like okay, you're a lion. Okay, you got to tell everybody you're a lion. So Rusty, I'm not even gonna. Yeboah is not. We're not doing that. We're not doing Yeboah. We're not doing Yeboah at receiver right now. I'm going to respect
that can't be a serious.
No. Harold says he would take Renfro in a heartbeat. Win a 1-on-1. We can get Wilson, Conklin, Ruckert, or Lazard, Brees, and Renfro on the field together. Yeah. I don't know about 10 to 7. 7 to 10 spots. It depends on exactly. Does any player really do? Does Devontae Adams?
I think that's Devontae Adams. I mean,
yeah. Renfro, I'm not sure. I would say a little bit less than 7 to 10, but I get the sentiment. It would be I'm much more comfortable with the top 3 of Renfro, Lazard, Wilson is at least average with obviously Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers being the quarterback next year. If that's the trio you have next year, then okay, it could even be plus average because Rodgers can take advantage of it a little bit more, especially the connection with Lazard and all that stuff. Like that's at least a solid group. with solid tight ends, with good running backs, I'm cool with that. But Cobb as getting 50% of the reps in 2023 is just too much. So I would love Renfro. But again, are you willing to pay that $13 million, Harold? How do you feel about the $13 million owed next year? Again, I think it's $8 million saved, $5 million dead if cut next year. But if it's post June 1st, you could roll that $5 million over the next 3 years. That's how I understand it as of now. I could be wrong. So somebody correct me if I'm wrong with his contract. So Kyle, are you willing to, let's just say Lawson for Renfro straight up with the cap differences, if you had to right now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, me too. I'm with it. I'm with it as well. Brown was so bad the first few games though. Can't move Becton. Yeah. Okay. Agree, Joe. About I guess this is about people saying that Becton should stay at left tackle. Transition tag Becton and try to sign Huff like they did with Quincy. It was kind of interesting to hear Huff say this week that the Jets haven't had any contact or contract extension talks with him. You'd think they would do it, right? Like you're assuming, the JFM thing kind of happened a few years ago, and they after that Falcons week, Kyle, was it before the Falcons? I think it was actually before the Falcons game. They agreed on terms. I don't think it was after. I could be wrong on that one though, but it was right around the Falcons week. I was expecting something similar with Huff, but no contact. So is that surprising to you?
That there hasn't been any talk about a contract extension whatsoever? Yes. But it could also be that before the Jets want to do that, I mean, the Jets have only played not even half a season of football yet. Mm-hmm. And there really been, the first couple of games, Bryce Huff, pass rush specialist, they're really starting as the weeks move on, playing him more in the run game too. I think maybe they want a bigger sample size too before they're really willing to commit big time money, which that boy is going to get big time money. He can rush the passer. There's no doubt about that. Some team is going to pay him big bucks. Hopefully it's the Jets. So I think maybe the Jets just kind of want to have a little bit more information before. So it's not shocking. It's a little surprising that there haven't been talks at all, but when you consider that, maybe not entirely.
Now, speaking of contracts, Kyle, as we catch up in the chat and we'll get to the game, take this one. Becton stays healthy and continues to improve. We sign him or franchise tag him.
I think you try to sign him. I mean, I don't think you let him walk for nothing. I mean, he's just there's too much talent there. You drafted him 11th overall.
Too much uncertainty on the line going forward.
When you say continues to improve, what are we talking about? If the guy has a Pro Bowl season, you're not letting him walk. I'm sorry. He's 25, 26 years old, something like that by the end of the season. You don't let.
I just think it gets tricky. It gets tricky if, let's say, you franchise Huff. Regardless, not even franchising Huff. The franchise is available. The tricky part becomes if he wants, I don't know, $17 million a year, about the franchise tag money over, 3 years, whatever the deal may be. Are the Jets hesitant at a certain point because of the injuries? That has to come into, and that has to be a part of the talks. The first couple of years you weren't so healthy. This year you're healthy. So can we pay him $20 million a year, $25 million a year? Let's say if he's a stud tackle the rest of the year, it's going to be tricky a little bit with Becton, I think, because of the past injuries.
Yeah, there it is.
Ali says, "What's good, brothers? Haven't caught you live in some time. Keep up the great work. Let's fucking go, Jets." Yeah, sorry, and we're about an hour behind in your chat, but we appreciate you being in here. As I read, transition tag is $16.2 million. That is fine. May go up a little bit. I think it depends. I think he has to realize in his contract talks that the injuries have to come into play, and if he's willing to meet the Jets midway, and not be unreasonable, then I think that you sign him. But if he's going to be unreasonable, then hey, we'll transition tag you. And then if you're worth that money or this year and you're healthy, then okay, we'll sign you. We'll be more willing the next year after 2 years of a proven bill of health to sign him, for that money that he wants. Right. So it kind of depends on
He's not going to be reasonable. I'm telling you right now, if he has this kid, he knows he has a lot of talent. He believes in that. He had a high draft spot. Like I've said this for years on these streams. Where you get drafted matters so much for your future contracts, whether you like it or not. There's a reason why Daniel Jones got the contract he did. There's a reason why, Quinnen Williams got the huge deal he did, including bigger contracts than guys like Simmons and guys like Lawrence, why they got deals before him because they were drafted after him. The top picks, they wait to see what the guys under them got. That matters. Becton is not going to be reasonable. If he's coming off a good season where he's healthy. He had a good rookie year, 11th overall pick. He's not going to say, "Oh, I've been injured." No, it's the NFL is a "what have you done for me lately" league. And if he's coming off a healthy year, where a season where he played 15, 16, 17 games.
So, my chat just froze a little bit, which is odd, but okay. Salah said, explain after the game. That's exactly why he decided to have Breece Hall score. So I guess this is in the point where we're talking about the score. And then Chris says, "Don't let Joe bull you, Kyle." I don't know if that's about, was that about,
it's probably about the tackle discussion we had.
Yeah. Verge Tibbs, what up, people? I rewatched Philly Jets game. I hate Whitehead's game. Learned to fucking tackle. Missed tackles have looked pretty bad this season, in my opinion. Better straighten that out ASAP. Yeah, I think this is his last year as a Jet. I'm hoping he had that one missed tackle in the red zone, Kyle, where he again just threw his shoulder, no wrap up, just left his feet dead fish. He basically throws his shoulder and just stops. He missed another tackle. I believe he missed two that game. Maybe there was a third. I forget, but yeah, not the biggest fan of Jordan Whitehead, and really like going through the list of the players on the defense in terms of like trying to find the studs and the duds and the good and the bad from the game. There really wasn't much bad other than, Jordan Whitehead. Like the defensive line played great. JJ continues to be more decisive in his rush, a lot more bull rush and power into his game, which is going to make him a successful rusher. And I'm happy he's doing that. JFM, you had a few good rushes. Quinn Williams had a few dominant plays. So really pumping the defensive line in that game. Mosley and Quincy Williams, dude, like that, especially this week, were very, very good. That play where Mosley, I believe it was it was a quarters, and he I forget if he passed something off, but I broke it down in the review. But he carries it to like vertical to Jordan Whitehead, I believe, and he has his eyes on the running back the entire time because he's trying to play it high to low. So he matches the high, eyes on the low, sees that Hurts is throwing to the low, breaks on the ball, closes ground really quickly. He's 3 yards away, squares him up, punches the ball out. I was like, God damn, dude. So Mosley had a good game. And then obviously Quincy's been on fire this year. So the whole front seven, I talked about in the review, they got one of my studs, and I don't even know how we necessarily we got here because of Whitehead. But yeah, front seven, Kyle, dominant game. And then obviously I guess we're going to talk about the whole defense now. Post that, Craig James, good game, really good pass deflection in the red zone there that could have went for a touchdown. You didn't really notice Tay Hayes a lot. He gave up that one deep reception to AJ Brown that we don't even know if it was a catch or not, but that was still really good coverage by Tay Hayes, a guy who was in the practice squad. So credit to those guys. Tony Adams, the fake blitz pick, the really big tackle for loss in Eagles backed up in their own territory. So the defense, dude, this game was fantastic. And Jalen Hurts, at times, while also we're trying to see both sides of this too, we're not going to say, hey, this is just the Jets, not necessarily the Eagles. And there are people who will say the Eagles lost this game more than the Jets won it, which, from a few angles, okay, I can understand it. In terms of like, I'm not.
Jets were missing 4 of their top 10 players.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about that shit.
The Eagles not running the ball as much as they should. Okay, if that's the argument you want to, if that's the argument you want to take, but dude, the defense overall, and Jalen Hurts made a few bad plays where he's staring at guys wide open that he definitely assisted the defense on. But overall, you have to give them a hell of credit for this game.
Yeah, no, the defense, they're making it fun.
Quincy's on the 3-year contract, right? By the way,
no, I think it's 2. Unfortunately, I think it was like 2 years, averaging $8 million per year. So
yeah, that'd be really nice to have for a 3-year deal at this point.
Yeah. But
based
good
on how
for him. He's probably going to get another big payday if he can stay healthy and continue his progress. And he's going to get some big time money. Although the linebacker market's kind of strange because it's kind of just like you got a couple guys like Warner and I know the guy that the former Bills linebacker Edmonds, the Bears. He got a massive deal, but other than that, it's like it kind of like
Patrick Moses should be coming up, right? Or did he get signed already this offseason?
I don't know. Roquan Smith might have gotten re-signed.
Yeah, he got the bag. He got the bag. He got a big time payday this offseason, I believe.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, he was a great player coming out of college, but Mosley's still right up there, man. Like, even though he signed that deal going all the way back to March 2019, I think is when he signed that contract, yet he's still really at the top of the list.
And something that people have been talking about a little bit this week on Twitter is like that, Quincy being better allows Mosley to be better. And I think that's something that kind of matches perfectly with what we used to say. And we said it last year, Kyle. There was times in the reviews, and you can attest for me because you watched most of the reviews, if not all of them, where I felt that Mosley was having to cover up for Quincy at times, where he was hesitant to hit a gap because he might think that, Quincy might not have his container, shoot the gap right. I remember specifically saying that in a few games last year where I felt like he was making up for Quincy. So now that you're letting him fly, he doesn't have to take the extra second to hesitate where maybe you see his lack of athleticism and he's just able to click and get there. So, and that's not saying Mosley was perfect because he had a game, the Broncos game he got hyped up for, but then there was also a few bad plays where he's chucking guys, 20 yards down the field, getting illegal contact penalties. And, the Broncos game last year, there's nobody wrapping up the running back, or there's nobody, at the running back with him. He tries to punch the ball out, completely misses, runs in for a touchdown. So he's had a few lapses in the last few years. He's definitely not maybe what he was, but overall, still, this game specifically, I think, was Mosley's best game, and then Quincy has just been stacking good games and good games.
When you started saying that, I saw the Ninja Turtles meme that sometimes people put around where it's like, was it Master Splinter? When the Ninja Turtles are young, he's kind of like walking, holding their hands and guiding them and teaching them. And then, like, as he gets older, the Ninja Turtles are like taking care of him. I don't know if you've seen. You know what meme I'm talking about?
I don't. I don't know. No, I don't think so.
I'm gonna try to find it. The one specific.
Oh, you're talking about the pictures. It's the picture. It's like the picture side by side. It's on the meme.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Okay, but so someone did this with Mosley, and it's like Mosley is
Quincy.
the Master Splinter teaching Quincy, and then like, oh, now Quincy's now the Ninja Turtle who's taking care of the old Master Splinter. I don't know that. When you look at the game that Mosley just had this past week, it's like, yeah, maybe not so much yet. Maybe they're both like, still in their prime, but not exactly. But you know what I'm saying.
No.
They can both still play. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, like, dude, when's the last time the Jets have had like kind of like good linebackers? Because that really hasn't been a strength of their team for quite some time.
That one year we wanted, it was Avery Williamson and Mosley. That was our last hope of it. And then Avery Williamson like blew out his leg in the Falcons preseason game because of some corner trying to make a play.
And then if I'm not mistaken, that was the same season where Mosley, hurt the groin, right? Week 1.
Yeah.
Week 1, he hurt the groin.
I believe so.
On a pass breakup to, what was it, Cole Beasley down the seam?
No, I think it was John Brown.
Yeah, you're right. John Brown. Fast John Brown used to call him. And then, he was sidelined for so many weeks, came back for that Monday night disaster, 33-0 to blowout MetLife Stadium. He didn't look like himself, and then he was sidelined for the rest of the season after that.
We had Davis and Harris, but we just had Davis at the wrong time. We got rid of him. We traded back for him, and David Harris, I think he was always, and this was like me doing like film and stuff, so it was just more me watching. But I always thought David Harris was a little bit overrated by Jets fans. I'm sorry to say it.
David Harris definitely could lay the wood on a player. He was a pretty good blitzer. In terms of him running sideline to sideline, like the shit you see Quincy doing sideline to sideline, David Harris, not his game at all. Coverage, David Harris, especially his last couple of years as a Jet, was pretty damn bad in coverage. So
those fucking wheel routes.
He was oh yeah, Philly was running them wheel routes all day against the Jets. What was that? That was the 2015 season, if I'm not mistaken, when they had Sam Bradford as their quarterback.
Kyle, I'm going to pull up a super chat, and I have to jump off the camera for just like a minute. I have to go do something real quick, but just address the super chat, and then I'll be back in 2 seconds.
Okay. All right. DFF1234 for $2 says, does Zach have 10% chance of becoming good? It's funny because if you asked this to both Joe and I last season, we were saying it's like probably less than 5%. I'm not trying to quote us exactly, but we were saying like, just historically, then you look at the numbers and stuff, how bad he's been, the chance of him turning around are extremely, extremely small. And like, we were talking like, oh yeah, he can surely improve, but to actually become good, like even Alex Smith was awful. Did Alex Smith ever become good? He became serviceable. Does Zach have a 10% chance of becoming good? I'll say yes, 10%, but man, I don't feel great about saying that, and I certainly wouldn't go a lot higher than that because I believed and always have believed in Zach's talent. But, kind of thinking about his whole, the evaluation that we had of him kind of makes me want to go back and reassess. And one of the things we talked about a lot was, we talked about this a lot after the Dallas game. was how well Zach improved at handling pressure in the pocket. That was his best game dealing with pressure in the pocket from the NFL, because Zach has been awful his entire NFL career dealing with pressure. And he didn't really face a lot of that at BYU. And so much of like his game was kind of like, making improvisational plays and off play scripts and, bootlegging outside of the pocket and stuff. Like the kid can move. He's had some nice scrambles this year and stuff. He's played tough, man. I'll say he's taken some big hits, hasn't bitched, hasn't cried. He does look a hell of a lot more confident. The biggest question is will he ever have like a really good understanding of NFL defenses to the point where he can click through reads really quickly and stuff? I think you've seen someone like Tua take massive leaps in his game over the past couple of years. Obviously, Allen took that big leap from year 2 to year 3. So I'll say 10% chance, sure, but I don't really feel confident saying it. But he is a talented thrower of the football. Sometimes you watch some of these throws. I'm trying to think what throw really there's a couple throws every game where you're like, wow, look at the heat. Like that ball leaving his hand, like he put some, like even that I remember the Patriots game, the MetLife Stadium Patriots game last year.
Conklin.
Okay, that was a good throw. I'm talking about like the last drive. Like that was like the very last drive.
Deep left sideline.
Marching. Yeah, like he had a couple throws where, and they didn't score. They got in the red zone, but they didn't score.
The Jets didn't score.
There were a couple balls though where like he was just throwing some zingers, and it's like, oh my god, man! Like the accuracy's a little off and stuff, but look at the heat coming off that ball.
The Cobb throw off his back foot this week.
I'm forgetting which one. Are you talking about? Yeah, that was a good throw, man. Like so, the talent's there. So that's why he was drafted 2nd overall. That's why Josh Allen, despite having garbage college film, was taken 7th overall in a trade-up scenario. Teams bet on talent. He has talent.
Now, and you answered it well. Like, how do you quantify good? And this year, like these last few games, Kyle, I think he's the thing that's exciting for or what I'm looking forward to with the offense is you have to realize that, yes, they need to be better in the red zone. They have to be better on 3rd down 100%. They have to stop shooting themselves in the foot. With the red zone problems, we don't have to just blame it on Zach Wilson. We don't have to just blame it on Hackett. We don't have to just blame it on penalties, but it's a combination, right, of Hackett with the run pass, with Zach missing some reads or hanging on for a read for a little bit too long or even coming off of a read a little bit too quickly. It's also penalties. It's Lazard with the blindside block. It's
oh my God, what a killer that penalty was, man.
It's a penalty, but I hate that penalty. That's the shit that's like this is a soft league.
I agree with you too.
I hate receiver shit. I hate it, dude. I hate those two penalties.
I'm thinking like clearly I'm not an expert on the rules. Like there's a lot of rules in football, professional football, but like I was thinking like, offset penalties, they're just going to replay the down. Like the Jets gained so much on that play.
Yeah.
And they went from gaining so much to getting moved back so much, despite the fact that the other team had a penalty too. And I was just like, oh my God, man, that was so killer.
Yeah, that was, they were out like what, like the 9 or 8 or something like that in the yard line. So how do you quantify good? But listen, like the last couple of weeks, and that's what I'm saying. Like I'm excited about Zach Wilson and his ability to go and not have to play the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Pats defenses, and go up against the Texans, the Commanders, the Falcons, the Giants, the Chargers, the Raiders, and see how much more he could do. Because I think he's at least these last few games, or even this season minus the Pats game, he's been a low tier starter to a good backup. Like we can say that about him, right? I think this year so far, and people will compare, this year not really doing much in the wins compared to last year not really doing much versus the wins, but I think it's a different Zach Wilson, regardless of what you want to say in terms of the stats. And okay, he's throwing for 140 yards last year, 150 yards versus this year, only throwing for 180 or 190 and no touchdowns in the win. I still think the process has been much better about Zach Wilson this year, minus the Pats game, where I think he's been, a lower tier starter to a good backup. And I'll still blame, or I'll still kind of critique the Jets front office about not bringing in another legit quarterback, but they got lucky a little bit so far with Zach Wilson in the progression sheet he's shown.
Yeah, and if we can just think about this immediate game, like, would I rather have Zach Wilson starting in this game or Tyrod Taylor? I'd rather have Zach Wilson.
Would you rather have Zach Wilson this year so far or Mike White?
Zach Wilson, from what I've seen this year, because I have seen improvement. And, you never.
Big turn of events there. So like
Yeah.
seriously, like it's
Yeah.
not saying so much, but it's saying something compared to us thinking he was a third string guy, which he was his first couple of years. But we'll move on because we still have to do.
He was so bad last year that it totally made sense that Salah sat and stuff.
Sneakers, well, for sure. He literally got benched for Joe Flacco and a CFL quarterback at a certain point in the season. Like sneakers to boots. Outsiders will say this game is an easy W for the Jets. Jets fans know that isn't the case. Come out swinging, put Giants away in the first half. Prove this isn't the same old Jets 6-3 heading to Buffalo, dude. You need to win at least 2 of the next 3. Right?
Let me say this right now: that Matt Milano injury for Buffalo, you have, and by the way, Matt Milano and Trey White. That Matt Milano injury for that defense is catastrophic.
Did he get injured?
He's done for the year, bro.
But when did he get injured? I'm asking.
It was against the Jags in London like 2 weeks ago, something like that.
So he didn't play. So the Giants played the Bills defense without Milano, and they only put up like 9 points or whatever, 10 points, 11, something like that. I think the Giants averaged like 10.5 or 11 points this season. By the way.
Yeah, the Giants' offense has been atrocious. Granted, the offensive line has been like really banged up. So like a lot of people who are shitting on Jones, my understanding is like the guy literally is like every play he's getting destroyed, at least when he was out there. I haven't really watched the Giants this year, so I can't really say for myself, but I'm not surprised. Andrew Thomas is down. Evan Neal sucks. Rookie center. Who else who are the guards? I have no idea.
I know there's been some injuries and stuff like that. I don't know if you want to pull up their depth chart, just for reference while we're talking about it. But I know that they've had some injuries, but I don't know if they're getting Thomas back. I don't know if they're getting Neal back. I know John Michael Schmitz has struggled when he's been in, which again, people wanted him over Joe Tippmann because he was third string on the original depth chart that the Jets PR puts out, and not even the coaches. So we'll freak out, even though Joe Tippmann in his
they just signed Justin Pugh, and like the whole thing. Oh, off the couch, I'm sure you saw that.
Yeah. But getting into sneakers and boots, like how many times have we just beat the Bills, Kyle. We're going to play the Pats after the big Bills win. Let's finish it up with another strong week and end the run. We lose to the Pats. We've had so many post-bye failures or just big game failures. After the Dallas game, remember with Sam Darnold in his mono year, we beat the Cowboys. We're all excited. Seeing Ghost game was the next week. So we've had so many big disappointments where, it would be nice for the Jets to come out and whoop the Giants' ass. And talking about it's an easy game. We thought the Broncos was going to be an easy game if they didn't stop Russell Wilson on that last drive, or the forced fumble by Quincy Williams. They have a chance to go down the field and score a touchdown and win that game. It's no game is a gimme.
Who's the only guy in this offense that really might scare you a little bit? It's probably Darren Waller, and the Jets historically have been so bad against tight ends, and we would get killed by tight ends, especially during the Rex year.
We really haven't been killed this year.
I'm not worried about it at all. With
blown coverages. That's it though.
With the linebackers we have right now, I want to talk about guys carrying Quincy, carrying guys up the seam and stuff. Man, he can run with anybody. So.
They were really good passing stuff off this week. There was very little dead time between passing zone coverages off and stuff. It was very, very in sync. But yeah,
how's Saquon look this year?
I know he popped off a little bit last week. He had some big plays, but I don't know how he's looked the entire year, to be transparent. But
by the way, Joe, I did put the chat thing in. Did you ever project it on the screen?
Yeah, I can see it. I'm not going to pull up yet though.
Oh, okay.
And we'll get to the Giants a little bit, but with that being said, the next 3, right? Because people have been breaking down to the next 3, at minimum 2-1, right? At the bare minimum, and you're hoping for 3-0. Then you're heading into.
So we got the Giants, Chargers following that. Is that what you said?
Yeah, Giants, Chargers, Raiders, and then after that, I think it's Buffalo home against Miami.
Dude,
so you're hoping to go into those games.
I want 3-0, man, but 2-1. If you don't have 2-1 over the stretch, it is a disappointment.
If you're 1-2 over the stretch, it's massive disappointment, because then you go, okay, now you're going into, the Dolphins and Bills, back-to-back weeks, and you're at that point, you're 4-5. And then even if you split those games, you're still 5-6 at that point, and you're fighting an uphill battle to get to the playoffs. So 2-1 minimum, hope for 6-3, dude. They're a better team than the Giants. The Chargers offense is Herbert when pressured. He chucks some balls up there, and they're obviously 2-4 this year. I believe they had a bye last week, so they're not coming out the gates hot. And Stanley makes plenty of questionable head coaching decisions in terms of going forward and timeouts and whatever else. And the Raiders suck. The Jets are better than these 3 teams. Let's beat at least 2 of them. Hope for 3. So yeah, I'm completely with you. The sneakers.
The Raiders suck, but I mean they did beat a team that beat us, and the Jets didn't have a necessarily easy win against the Broncos. I mean, like, this is the NFL, and listen, the Raiders, they don't have Chandler Jones because I don't know what the hell's going on with him. Who else do they have rushing the passer? Obviously, Crosby's really good, but so it was scary thinking having both those guys coming off the edge.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a fan of Garoppolo personally, and is he even going to play in the game? Like, guy's always getting hurt.
Jimmy Garoppolo behind that offensive line versus our defensive line. I don't see it. But let's see. At the time I was screaming at the TV for Hall.
Wait, do we do that one super chat from?
Oh shit! Yeah, no, sorry, I clicked right past it. Beloved piece, I apologize. I think this is the best defense we'll have for a while. Guys like Huff, Gardner, etc. will have to be paid. Do you guys think Ulbrich will get head coaching interviews next offseason? I think he'll get a few interviews, but I don't think he'll get hired because he's under Salah. I think if he was under an offensive coach and the defense was performing like this, then maybe. But just because of that, I see him probably in interviews, but not being actually hired somewhere. But yeah, I think it
depends on how far the Jets went too, because that the more success your team has and the deeper playoff run you have, that matters a lot. Like both the Eagles coordinators got hired as head coaches last offseason.
Now, do you think this is going to be our best? Do you think the 2023 Jet, and obviously there's a lot of prognosticating here and stuff, but 2023 Jets better than the 2024 Jets with, in terms of like having to pay people and all that stuff? But who do they really have to? They don't really have to pay a lot of people next year, and you're hoping that the Jets kind of go all in with Rodgers for 1 year. You're not going to assume he's going to play 2 years. You're getting rid of Lawson's money. You can get rid of Whitehead's money. So I think just having more flexibility, having the same defensive line you have pretty much going into, like, if you retain the entire same defensive line, Kyle, right, next year, which I think they can do, you bring back Quentin Jefferson, you bring back Solomon Thomas, you could probably bring back Al Woods for run stuffing. Okay, Moses is under contract, Quincy's under contract, Tony Adams is under contract. You get rid of Whitehead, you give his money to somebody halfway decent. Reed's under contract next year. Michael Carter, I think, had to pay, right? No, this is his third year, so he has another year left next year. So I think you replace Lawson or you don't, and you probably get a better safety next year. So the 2024 Jets actually might be better.
I think the 2024 Jets will be better, especially when you
McDonald's developing.
The quarterback should be better.
No, defense.
Oh, we're just talking about the defense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 2024 should be better. And plus,
right,
listen, if they're a potential Super Bowl contending team, you want to talk about off-season splashes and stuff, trades. There's the NFL nowadays, more so than like kind of when we were growing up, there's so many more big names that get moved.
How does Kevin Byard get traded for a 5th and a 6th round pick?
Yeah,
and Edmonds, like what is going on here?
2-time All-Pro, right?
He's still a good player.
Yeah. So, and the rich get richer. So, like, again, and who's making moves like that? It's teams like the Eagles, like the Jets, especially if you're gonna have Rodgers. Of course, you're going all in. You think that they're going to rest on their laurels and say, oh, okay, we're fine on defense. We don't need to add anybody. I mean, maybe they might want to focus all the resources into offense, but teams who go all in, they really go all in. So they could definitely add another piece on this defense. Who that might be, I'm not sure, but I would say 2024 will probably be better.
Another year of JJ developing as a pass rusher. Another year of McDonald developing as a pass rusher. Maybe he's used more next year. You hope that you re-sign Huff, which is a priority, and I think that's something the Jets need to get done. You bring back Quentin Jefferson for not a lot of money. Okay, so who's really leaving? You're getting rid of Lawson, and Whitehead is hopefully not back next year, but it's not like he's a big thing to replace. So I think they'll actually be better next year. But post that. Then it's
hey Joe. He had the game-winning pass breakup. Joe, stop shitting on him.
He did have that one pass breakup was actually nice by Jordan Whitehead. But with that being said, they're not really losing a lot of guys next year. Now post that, then you have to pay Michael Carter and then Sauce and then JJ and
here's another thing you have to consider too. Who the hell knows how Rodgers is going to bounce back from this injury? You're hoping it's going to be fine and go all in. But then how many more years is it going to give you? He said this was going to be a multiple year thing, but it is already going to be a multiple year thing. He never committed to 3 years or anything like that. Zach Wilson keeps getting better, and we see a whole season of him this year, and we're pleasantly surprised. You pick up his 5th year option, because if you pick up his 5th year option, 2nd overall pick, that's not cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, Kyle, I was listening to you, but like it kind of blanked out because I was trying to read a chat, but then it hurt my head. So just for context, this is what I was. I don't know if this is I don't know. I don't know how to answer this one, but I was reading it's kind of hurting my brain, and then like you were talking, I was like, oh, I don't. It did confuse me a little bit, so I don't really know.
So are we reading this chat? Or
no, that's what I was reading. I've seen some fans be critical of JFM. I think his film tells a different story than his stats.
Dude, JFM's film has been good. His film has been good. Like
he's been. This has been his best year minus his D tackle year, in my opinion.
I think this has been his best year overall. I mean, like he's asked to do quite a bit. He moves all over the place, and I think he's done good wherever he's played. And I've said this for so many years, man, dude. Whenever he's over a tight end, there is not a tight end in this league that can even, try to block him. I mean, like he doesn't just like move them and win reps. He destroys them. Like he absolutely like obliterates plays where tight ends are asked to block him. But then like, okay, the Jets got really lucky. I hate to say that when talking about an injury when Lane Johnson went down, but whoever that backup was, man, like, I mean, that guy was getting abused all day. And a lot of times it was JFM beating him. Other times it was Bryce Huff. Sometimes it was JJ, but JFM, he's been on a tear all year. Like I can't think of any game this year where JFM had like a quiet game or like a bad.
There was
game.
one game where I was like, he didn't show up with maybe it was the Broncos.
Dallas.
No, not Dallas. It was either the Broncos or the Pats, where I was like, he was a little bit quiet, but still was fine. But he's been good this year for sure. Like
Pats game was disappointing.
His bull rush has been ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, okay. There's something in here I wanted to highlight, but then I completely lost it. Somebody said 50-50 in terms of, Jones versus Taylor is a good, it's a good Winker bet retired in 2005. Yeah, I thought it was like 4, 5, 6, somewhere around there. Somebody mentioned before, I think it was either Lionheart or Rivka who said that.
Well, you said you're not going to call him Lionheart. What the hell, Joe?
Yeah, no. Eagle thing. Bryce Huff is the first dominant edge rusher the Jets have had since Abraham, right? That's not even a conversation at this point. He's been killing it. So,
yeah,
Megatron is definitely a top. He was insane. Oh, there's plenty of good. We could talk about old receivers, old running backs, and stuff all day. Like I love like the 2000s football. That was the best. So Moss, Harrison, and Megatron for me. Jesus, Rob Moore greater than Cotchery. All right, I was a little bit young. Rob Moore was before him though, right? So y'all were Mescalate at your back. What's up to Christian? Harrison creeps me out because his reputation off the field. Marvin Harrison? What, does he have a weird reputation off the field? Is he doing some Marv Albert biting females and stuff? Wasn't that Marv Albert's thing? Sorry if I'm speaking out of turn off if I'm 100% right, but I think he bit like a hooker or something crazy like that, Marv Albert. But I could be wrong. It could be somebody else, but I think that's Marv Albert. All right, let's see. Coles and Santana and Moss were both 100-catch wide receivers. Don't correct me if I'm wrong. Did they ever have? I don't know. I would say no.
Coles definitely had over 100 catches. Like I know
Jets,
that.
Yeah.
It's funny. Like look at some of Cole's stats when he was with the Redskins. He caught a lot of balls, but like his yards per catch were quite low.
Yeah. What was his biggest catch here with the? Can you look that up, Kyle? Laveranues Coles. I mean, what was his max catches with the Jets?
I don't know if I don't think he had over 100. With the
I was gonna say I don't think it was 100. I think that's what they asked.
Maybe with
we never had good enough quarterbacks to get guys 100 catches, right? Like that's just you have to have a quarterback as well for that. So, Charles Henderson, is it me or do we have the worst wide receiver room in the league? I would no. Look who we're playing this week. Like there's worse out there for sure.
Lavernius had a couple like 90 catch seasons. He had a 90, a 91. He had an 89, an 82. Okay. So, but not 100, but certainly close. And in that era, not bad.
Yeah. Is it worst wide receiver? Just look at the Giants. The Giants are worse, right? You're taking the Jets over the Giants. You're taking the Jets over the Pats. It's like there's definitely teams if we deciphered or went through all the teams that we could say the Jets are better than. I'm taking the Jets wide receiver
like
the Cardinals.
Like ideally,
over the Cardinals.
Think about any receiver on the Pats. Is there any receiver on the Pats that you would say, "Oh, I'm glad he's my number 2. I feel very good that he's my number 2."
Yeah. So do
they have a good number 2? No, they don't, and they certainly don't have a 1.
Yeah, Kyle, want to do a list real quick? Let's just say team. I'll ignore the ones who they're definitely better than, but stop me when they're not better than this team. But the Cardinals, the Ravens, I think is arguable. We can argue that if we want, but I'm taking the Jets over anybody they have because of Garrett Wilson. The Falcons, I'm taking the Jets. So that's at least 3 teams. The Panthers are 4. That's another team.
Yeah, they're really desperate for a receiver right now.
The Bears, that's 5. At the minimum.
What about the Saints? I know they got Olave, but Mr. Reckless driving. I play for the Saints.
Yeah. The Saints, even like the Browns, okay, they have the Browns you can argue because of Cooper, but I'll take Wilson over Cooper. Then you have Elijah Moore in there. The Texans, the Colts, the Packers. The Jets aren't so bad at receiver. It's just they need a 3. It's not about the 1. It's not even necessarily about the 2. It's the 3. So, but
you can't be trotting Randall Cobb out there as much as you are.
Absolutely not. But yeah, there's worse. The Giants, the Pats, again, all the other teams we were talking about. Somebody's. I'm trying, Alice. I'm trying to decipher what you're saying. I don't know.
Going on with tight end right now. Like I like this tight end room. So.
The offense has to communicate and execute in the red zone as a unit. Ideally, that was a normal block, dude. I've gotten lit up in high school football by those blocks. The people coming back, like, oh my god. I think it's a part of football, dude. Like you have to be tracking the ball with awareness, in my opinion. That's just how the game is played. Same thing. The defenseless receiver. I'm trying to knock that ball out.
It's totally unreasonable if a guy hits you in the back, but he came from the front of you. Like, yeah, maybe sure it wasn't in your, maybe you could see him a little bit from your peripheral vision, but like he is in the field of sight. I don't know.
Arte and Harrison have allegedly killed somebody. An incredible commenter said, yeah, Marv Albert definitely bit a hooker. So I hope he's right, because I don't want to be wrong and speak out of turn about Marv Albert. I actually like his announcing, but yeah, biting hookers is not a smart idea. Just the diseases you can get from that is just risky in general, right? Like what a psychopath. So Kyle, moving on from that, we caught up to the chat. So we'll run through the defense. We kind of ran through it quickly. I don't know if there's anything from the defensive side of the ball you want to add, like specific. We talked about JFM. JJ, again, hell of a job with the bull rush, hell of a job with some pass deflections. The one pass deflection.
His effort and motor on a down-to-down basis is really impressive. And that's certainly one thing you can always control. He does have natural talent and stuff.
For sure.
I really don't want to doubt this guy. So, I know we've been very critical of him. I think justifiably so, because, hey, listen, if you have talent, I'm going to want you to be good. If my team spend a first-round pick on you, traded up to get you, I'm going to want you to be good. I'm not going to bet against him, because clearly he's got a good work ethic. And I think that I didn't watch that show, Last Chance U or whatever, but I know some people said, I was a fan of him from watching that show or whatever. So it seems like the guy's got the work ethic and stuff. I see the motor when I watch the tape. I see the work ethic. Obviously, the talent's there. Just look at some of the combine numbers and stuff. 10-yard split, 40-yard dash. So he might not ever be the best pass rusher. Let's just talk about this for a moment. He needs to keep working that speed to power thing. Eventually, tackles are going to have to respect it more and more and more, and know that they're going to know that that's his go-to. And then, okay, you've been setting it up all game. You've been hitting with the bull rush all game.
Yeah,
you're still getting, and then, okay, now you hit the spin move inside, and the guy totally wasn't expecting it, and you just got a big sack on third down, right? Like, so in due time, just keep doing what works, JJ. And then as time goes on, you can continue to work those other things in practice. Don't necessarily throw them in games just yet. I think it can come all together for him in due time.
Yeah, I think that's the next step. Decisiveness now with the bull rush and him becoming more of a bull rusher, and then use some of that speed, their power to speed type of stuff instead of the speed to power stuff. Set up the outside with softening him to the inside with the threat of a bull rush or something like that. So he was good. Again, JFM was good. Quincy, they were all good. Front seven, great. We talk about the offensive line. Receivers, good. Garrett Wilson, huge catch down the sideline was obviously awesome. Cobb had a drop. Lazard had the illegal block. He had the drops, so not good from those guys. Hardman had that one play where, in my opinion, that speed out Kyle on first down. I don't know if you. I
know what you're talking about, which could have been.
Well, no, he stops running his route though. Hardman, like he kind of gears down on a speed out.
Can you pull up
Yeah. Do you remember exactly when it was? Because I'm not gonna. I don't remember exactly when that play was. It's kind of like
This is when Garrett Wilson went down, so this would probably be later in no, maybe not later in the game. Was it when Garrett Wilson went down? Because they really don't play hard. I mean, I know that's why Hardman was in the game.
No,
for the most part, playing some reps.
Yeah, I got it. It was actually relatively early in the game. Okay, I think it was play 14. No screen. No, it was this play. Okay. This is the play. We're at the top of this. He gears down. You want to see him continue to run that. It's a little bit laggy right now because of my computer's running a million things. But if you look at the placement,
can you play the wide angle once more?
If you play the placements, dude, that's a good throw. That's to his outside hand, right out of the reach. So it's a really good throw from Zach Wilson. But if you look, you want him to continue this route. Like he gears down a little bit, looking for the ball. It's a speed out. You know that guy's gonna be driving down that route. You need to continue to the sideline. He doesn't complete the route, and then the ball is too far.
And by the way, if this is a catch, this defender's diving right here. How much yards can he turn up for? Could he potentially?
He probably runs out of bounds, like with his momentum. To be completely honest.
Yeah, but if he can make a good move, he can maybe cut in the inside and beat that slow safety. And,
potentially.
Maybe house. I mean, like Hardman is pretty good with the ball in his hands. And we saw him have a nice punt return when he went back to the Chiefs just recently. So, yeah, I mean, like, listen, those are the types of, like, good teams capitalize on plays like that. They don't leave them, like, you don't get nil. You take a play like that. Listen, the defender kind of makes a mistake. He tries to, dive for the ball, misses it, turn it into some big play. Yeah, it was a pretty solid throw. And
so not good from the receiving core minus Garrett Wilson. We talked about the offensive line, the running backs. Fine, right? Fine. Nothing really crazy from Breece Hall in this game. He had a couple catches for a decent amount of yards, but that's about it. The tight ends, Kyle. Tyler Conklin the last couple of weeks has been showing up a little bit. His rocker showing up, his yak is showing up a little bit. He had that one really almost catch out of bounds.
Yak with the Jets these past couple of games looks better than anything he did in Minnesota, truthfully.
If he was having this year, last year, when we had like that jersey kind of bet thing for Christmas, at this point, you think if he continued this, you'd be like, okay, maybe it's worth a jersey, Because he's kind of what I expected him to be last year. This year, he's not having the drop problems. He's not having fumbles, and now shocker, people like Conklin again. But this is who Conklin was with the Vikings.
Plus, when you consider the yak,
yeah. So now past that, Kyle. Sorry, I thought you were hesitating.
No, and Rucker, he did have a pretty solid catch on a screen and managed to, run for some good yak and get the first down. And the dude gives lots of effort on blocking plays down and down.
So we'll get to the Giants game, so we'll end at 9. But Zach Wilson, this is kind of like last week was maybe a B-. I think we kind of talked it up to. This week was like a C+. Again, nothing too risky. There was a few drives at the end of the first half there where I want to maybe see him take a shot or two. And even that play where he threw the Hardman, just based on the look, and I go over it, where you had kind of 3v3 there, and I know that the linebacker was there, and maybe he would drop into coverage just based on how they were lined up. I would like to see him check that linebacker first, throw that ball to Dalvin Cook. If that linebacker doesn't blitz, then you go to Hardman. So I'd like to see him read that linebacker on that play, because then it was a 3v3 or a 4v3 situation, 3 blockers versus 3 defenders with Dalvin Cook. So just read that linebacker. He didn't. But past that, I don't think he had like a lot of missed open guys or anything like that. Like there were some throws I was like, ooh, a really good quarterback. Rodgers hits that, Mahomes hits that. Zach Wilson being a little bit hesitant, maybe didn't see the or anticipate the gap in his own coverage or whatever it might have been for that individual play. But just okay, right? No turnovers, like 180 yards, whatever it was, 190 yards. Didn't take any big risks. Just okay. C+, right?
And a couple scrambles for first downs or close to it, diving forward,
Mm-hmm.
And we can, I think, both agree and honestly say this: 39-year-old Aaron Rodgers doesn't have the juice in his legs that 23, 24-year-old Zach Wilson does. So, granted, sometimes when Zach does bail out and is scrambling because he missed a read or whatever, but sometimes when you drop back 3-5 steps, it's just not there sometimes. And sometimes, it is convenient if you do have that part to your game. So, obviously that's what killed us when we played Mahomes, because Mahomes didn't do too much passing against us. but he did hurt us with his legs. So it is a nice piece to have his game, and he did have a couple of those this game. He's had a couple of those pretty much every week. So
I think it was Sneakers the Boots in one of the film shows, like something. Or no, I think it's actually after our stream was like we kind of talk a lot about the players who are disappointing or whatever. Let's talk about some of the people who have surprised you. So I gave him a couple of people who surprised me. I believe in the comments. So Sneaker the Boots, if you didn't see that, but who are your guys who's your most underrated player right now for the Jets?
Season or from based on this past game?
I think underrated is always harder than overrated because I think fans, especially Jets fans, tend to overrate their players even if they do suck. Sometimes
every fan base overrates their certain players.
Like last year,
not getting national recognition.
Last year, Conklin wasn't good, but he was definitely underrated by people, in my opinion. So that was a good answer for last year, but this year, nobody on defense is really coming to mind. Maybe Quentin Jefferson would be like the first guy on defense who I think has been maybe a little bit better than some
maybe
people
say
realize.
Connor McGovern at center because people just hate that guy. They always have hated that guy.
Yeah, I would say McGovern in center or Quentin Jefferson at D tackle if I had to answer that question right now. Or some people I don't think realize how good Michael Carter's been really good this year too. Actually, yeah, I don't know.
Michael Carter, the second.
Yeah. And dude, even Michael actually underrated right now. Michael Carter pass protection on offense has been good this year. And people are talking about, cutting him. So I think Michael Carter, the running back, is actually probably a better answer. So
yeah. And
even
just of your boy MC2 had to play a little bit on the boundary this week too. So kudos to him.
Yeah, wild, right? Like Bryce Hall was a guy who was underrated, I would say, a few weeks ago by fans, but the fact that he's come in for 2 weeks and actually held down the spot pretty well. I know the one play had a really bad missed tackle versus AJ Brown, but past that, he didn't. I think
huge run.
Huge run. But I think Nani put out, he was, other than that throw, which I don't think would actually be completion on him if I had to chart it based on my recollection of the play. I could be wrong if I went back and watched it, but it wasn't like a big reception that was allowed on him. It was Yak. So he needed to make that tackle. But overall, I think he was, Hurts was like 3 for 7 for 20 or 30 yards past that one play. So he was even good and he was underrated previously, but now I think fans kind of view him as corner 4 again, maybe even over Eccles, and people want to get rid of this guy, which I thought was crazy. His arc from being an okay starter with us for those few games he had his rookie year to having a few bad plays in preseason or during the season to him from being like a rookie sensation to having a few bad plays to being a scrub who we want to cut was wild to me. Like the Bryce Hall hate last year was always a little bit overboard, right?
I think I even played into that a little bit too, so I don't want to act like I'm innocent.
So
I was definitely harsh on him for getting beat for that touchdown against the Ravens.
But it was good coverage. Like it was good coverage and excellent catch. Like it's not a play where he's getting beat by 5 yards. Like blame him for that stuff. But when he's getting beat because the guy made an excellent play, you can't kill him. It was an excellent play.
It was an excellent play, especially the throw, catch too, but. I mean, it's like, is there any defense for a perfect throw? Yeah, if you don't allow it to be a perfect throw. And I don't know. I feel like we're going back a while now, but my whole thing with Bryce is like sometimes his makeup speed is just not there.
Oh no, it's not. But he's also, I think he's a more technically savvy player than Eccles is. So Eccles might give you the big play, but he's just a little bit more volatile in my opinion than Bryce might be. But Kyle, we have 5 minutes left, so we're gonna do we'll do overall thoughts on the offense and just looking at their depth chart. We'll do overall thoughts on the defense. We'll kind of give our score, lightning round it a little bit, but looking at the Giants' offense, like we kind of already talked about it. Like where are we scared here? Obviously, the Jets have gotten beat up somewhat by tight end this year. More busted plays than actually like getting beat one-on-one. So as long as they have their assignments down and stuff, you hope not see the busting coverages. But still, okay, Waller, pretty good player. Past that, Saquon Barkley is a good player, but he's running behind an offensive line that has an injured Andrew Thomas, an injured Michael Schmitz, and an injured Evan Neal. And even if all those guys play, I don't think they're a good offensive line. So your primary or one of your primary weapons is behind a shit poor offensive line, which we saw, Jets with the Le'Veon Bell stuff. And when he came to the Jets, obviously, Barkley's a better player than Le'Veon, but you don't want to have a stud running back behind a bad offensive line. So where are the Giants scoring points on the Jets here? Like I don't know how they're gonna put a touchdown or two together.
I completely agree with you, and sometimes like, they would say, oh, trap game. Sometimes you're a defense and, you start feeling your oats and you start thinking like, oh man, like we just shut down the Super Bowl Eagles who put up 35 in a Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs, blah, 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 blah. And sometimes you can sleep on an offense like this, and these guys are still professionals. So, I just hope it's not something like that. But yeah, I mean, like, they should get some reinforcements on the offensive line. Obviously, getting Andrew Thomas back is huge, but a name we haven't mentioned yet, Isaiah Hodgins. He was pretty solid last year after they acquired him from Buffalo. I haven't heard anything from him this year. Sterling Shepard's always hurt. Slayton, he's been like as far as where they drafted him, he's been a fine player for a 5th round pick.
They have a bunch of 3s, right? Like 3s or 4s, like that. They're a bunch of 3s or 4s. This team. I don't think they have a 2.
And even Waller, Waller apparently he was tearing it up in preseason.
Yeah,
had a very good stint in the Raiders, but I mean he hasn't really done much this year. So and
he had a good game last week. I think against the Commanders, but
okay.
But even if where are they scoring? So Kyle, I want to scroll down to the defense, and again, this is kind of the thing I said where you see some numbers out there that their inside linebacker duo of or their linebacker duo of McFadden and Okereke are actually playing pretty well. Now, how well we'll be the judge of that this week. Their defensive line's pretty good. Obviously, Williams, Lawrence, and then having Thibodeau, who's come on a little bit in recent weeks. That's a concern against the right side of the Jets' offensive line. But past good defensive line, decent linebackers, but their safeties, their safeties are actually okay. I think the Giants could be a decent defense. I just don't think they have a good offense, and their defense has shown up the last couple of weeks where they held the Bills to under 15 points or 20 points. Was it did they score like 12 or 14 or something like that against the Giants? I forget exactly what the score was, but they held them down. The Commanders, they only let up 7 points, or they only let them score 7 points. They're still obviously an NFL offense. So the defense is actually decent. It's just if you could maybe run the ball a little bit on this defense, which I think is some of their weaknesses, run the ball, throw the ball against their corners. I don't know who's guarding Garrett Wilson out of Adoree Jackson, Trey Hawkins, or Deonte Banks, who's a rookie. I think Deonte Banks actually said that he was a fan of Garrett Wilson. I think he cooked him in college, I believe. Maybe I heard that wrong. So solid players, but I think the Jets can run the ball on this defense considering their numbers. And I think that you force the ball a little bit to Garrett Wilson versus whoever is playing versus him. And the Giants blitz so much that, hey, you get Garrett Wilson one-on-one on a slant and they blitz on that play. He breaks one tackle, he could be gone. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a grinded out game, but run the ball. But also when you do pass, I would force feed the ball a little bit to Garrett Wilson and hope he gets some yak versus blitzing defense. Have to be aware of all of your hot routes and all that stuff versus Giants defense, who blitzes more than I think anybody in the league at this point.
Garrett Wilson is too good and has way too much talent to have as few receptions and yards and touchdowns as he has early in this season. So yes, you got to start force feeding him the ball, start designing more plays, where he's the, primary read, and, be the consequences of it may, if it's a 50-50 ball, throw the damn ball anyway. Trust your man to get it. He did it last week. So yeah, I agree with you, man.
Yeah, we chucked it up twice to Garrett Wilson, right on the sideline right there. Garrett Wilson made a great play. He chucked it up to him in the front left corner of the front left corner of the pylon. Or can it be a front left corner? I don't think it could be a front left corner. The front corner of the pylon, right? That ball he almost caught. That was with one hand. So yeah, I would chuck up to him a little bit more.
Dude, a little bit more chemistry with these guys. Zach was not supposed to be the starter this year. They might start hitting some of those, as the season goes on.
So what are your overall thoughts? I kind of rambled on there about the Giants defense, but what are your thoughts?
Their defense scares me much more than their offense, especially when you consider we have Zach. But I don't think this is gonna be a high scoring game for the Jets. If they can score 2 touchdowns offensively, I think I would take it. 2 offensive touchdowns, a couple field goals, 2-3 field goals. If they can get in the 20s, are the Giants going to put up 20 against the Jets? I don't think so. I'll go with a score of, let's see, I'll say 23 Jets and 10 Giants.
Okay, we're pretty close there, Kyle. Now I'm hoping the Jets don't come out. Oh yeah, am I still? Okay, yeah, you broke up a little bit on my screen.
I can
don't know
hear
if
you
that was
now.
me or if that was-
It was a long
Okay.
pause.
Okay, yeah, you broke up on mine, and I probably broke up on yours, so I don't know whose fault that was exactly. But regardless, we're back. Yeah, it's a game where you hope it's not like the Broncos and they take care of business a little bit early against the Giants, and they really use this Eagles game to catapult them forward. And you hope it's not the exact opposite, where the Jets are maybe feeling themselves after the bye week, they're overconfident and they don't come out and play. You hope that doesn't happen and they start fast. I'm going to be a Jets optimist this week, Kyle. I'm going to say 20-9. I don't know where the Giants score a touchdown. I see them limiting them to a couple field goals. I would sign the dotted line for 20 points against this Giants team, because the Jets defense, talking about shutting down Hurts, you shut down, Allen, you shut down Mahomes for the most part, minus the rushing game. Yeah, you had a bad game versus, Hurts, and Russell Wilson carved you up a little bit more than you wanted to in the run game, but I just don't see this Giants offense with no receivers and no offensive line being able to score. I just don't see what's the big, again, I don't think Waller's enough to overcome it. So Giants 3 field goals, Jets 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals, win the game. Hope they freaking knock the shit out of them right off the jump, and it's 17-3, and then we don't have to worry about it for the rest of the game. I'm a Bryce Hall fan, but he didn't play the ball well on TD last year. Okay, yeah. Again, he was right there, but nonetheless, Kyle, last thoughts or words for the chat here? People pretty much bailed out at this point, but nonetheless,
it's just a plea to the Jets. Please beat the Giants, because they haven't beat us since 2011. So I like hanging that over Giants fans. Please beat them. So for several more years, I could say you haven't beat us since 2011.
That, and if they knock on wood, if they were to lose this game, then you go into the Chargers game, and you're so much more down. And then if they lose that game, then it kind of just spirals downward potentially, which maybe not down, not spirals downwards, like crash and burn type of season. But you lose this game, there's a lot more pressure on that Chargers game next week, and they're a team who could beat you. Obviously with Herbert, they could beat potentially anybody. So this is not a must win, but it's pretty damn close, right? Let's take care of the teams we're supposed to beat. Let's stack some wins. Let's get to the fucking playoffs. So yeah, beat the Giants. We will be back